Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and today we are taking a look at notorious killer Israel Keys, one of the most bizarre and confounding individuals that has captured the attention of true crime aficionados for many, many years. He's definitely not like a lot of other killers, and there is so much mystery surrounding him, as well as so many missing women that may theoretically have been victims of Israel Keys, and further theories that he might not have acted alone, or at least not in every single kill. I mean, there's many theories out there. This is, of course, Mindshock, where we leave no stone unturned, no theory unscrutinized, without falling for logical fallacies like all these other so-called investigators out there. If you enjoy the Mindshock podcast, want to support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, make sure you allow your device to have those notifications come through, like and share this podcast on social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for topic, case, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. So if you want to support the channel, you can become a patron as well. Spread the message of logic and reason, both in the true crime sphere as well as other topics. So let's just do a quick breakdown on Israel Keys for those that are not familiar with this so-called individual. I don't know if human being would be an apt description, but this individual that has unleashed murder and mayhem. Just real quick from the wiki, Israel Keys, born January 7th, 1978, died December 2nd, 2012, suicide allegedly. He was an American serial killer, rapist, arsonist, burglar, and bank robber. Quite the rap sheet for this guy. He admitted to violent crimes as early as 1996 with violent sexual assault of a teenage girl in Oregon, in a spree that lasted until his capture in 2012. In December 2012, Keys died by suicide while awaiting the trial for the murder of Samantha Koenig. The FBI believes he killed at least 11 people. Keys was born in Cove, Utah on January 7, 1978, to a large Mormon family. He was the second of 10 children born to Heidi Keys and John Jeffrey Keys. Israel and his siblings were homeschooled. When Keys was 5, the family rejected Mormonism and moved to an area near Colville, Washington. They lived in a one-room cabin without electricity or running water. In Colville, the family attended services at two churches, the Ark and the Christian Israel Covenant Church, which practiced white supremacist Christian identity ideology. Keys later described this community as militia-like and Amish. In this area, the Keys befriended the neighboring family of Chevie Kehoe, later convicted for a 1996 triple murder. Keys renounced the Christian faith by his teenage years and eventually became interested in Satanism. As an adult, Keys lived in the Makah Reservation community of Nia Bay, Washington, on the Olympic Peninsula. And of course, Washington State, for whatever reason, just has such a high concentration of serial killers. And it is curious, because some of them are homegrown in Washington, some of them come from other areas, like Israel Keys himself. It's just really weird how the state of Washington just seems to really have and attract serial killing individuals. Now, how coincidental is it that he just happened to be friends? His family was friends with the Kehoe family? Just a quick aside here on Chevie Kehoe. American white supremacist convicted murderer. He is serving 3 consecutive life sentences for the kidnapping, torture, and murder of William Mueller and his family. His accomplice, Daniel Lewis Lee, was sentenced to death for the murders and was executed July 14th, 2020. Wow, that's pretty recent. Kehoe was born in Orange Park, Florida, U.S. He was the oldest of 8 sons, born to Kirby and Gloria Kehoe, and named after his father's favorite brand of automobile, Chevrolet. Wow, he named his kid after a car. Not even a car. a brand, so not a specific model. I guess he liked all Chevrolets. His father had served in the Navy during the Vietnam War. When Kehoe was an infant, his father moved his family to Madison County, North Carolina. In 1985, Kirby moved the family again, this time to Deep Lake in Stevens County, Washington. Kehoe entered Colville Junior High as a ninth grader in 1987, where he was an honor student. Future serial killer Israel Keyes was a family friend. In 1988, his parents pulled him and his younger brother, Shane, Cheyne, out of public school, and from then on, they were homeschooled. Raised with increasingly extreme anti-government and white supremacist beliefs, Kehoe formed a plan to bring down the U.S. government with his self-styled Aryan People's Republic militia. Kehoe married Karina Gum, and the couple had 3 children. Kehoe took a second wife, Angie Settle, also known as Angie Murray. Wow, that's an interesting coincidence. Some people believe Israel Keyes may possibly have been involved in the Maura Murray disappearance. In 1993, but the relationship only lasted 54 days. Crimes: in June 95, Kehoe and an accomplice kidnapped and robbed Malcolm and Jill Friedman, a couple believed to be Jewish who owned a store at which Kehoe was once employed. The Mueller family murders: in January 96, Kehoe and another accomplice, Daniel Lewis Lee, left the state of Washington, traveled to Arkansas. On January 11, 1996, they arrived at the home of William Frederick Mueller, a gun dealer who lived near Tilly, Arkansas, and who was in possession of a large collection of weapons, ammunition, and cash. Kehoe and his father had previously, in February 95, robbed Mueller once already. Wow. So he does like to work with a partner, whether it's his father or someone else. Kehoe expected to find valued property at the house. Dressed in police raid clothing. Wow, these guys are ahead of the times. The 2 men tried to enter the home of the Muellers, but they were not at home. When the Muellers returned, Lee and Kehoe overpowered and incapacitated Mueller and his wife, Nancy Ann Mueller. They then questioned Nancy Mueller's 8-year-old daughter, Sarah Elizabeth Powell, about where they could find cash, guns, and ammunition. After finding $50,000 in cash, guns, and ammunition, they shot each of the 3 victims with a stun gun, causing them to pass out. I mean, I guess that's better than a real gun. They then placed plastic bags over their head, sealed the bags with duct tape, suffocating them to death. Wow, that's not better than using... I was actually about to be really upset here that they killed these people, including the 8-year-old daughter. But then what's the point of... Wow, that's messed up. There is some evidence that Lee was unwilling to kill Sarah, so Kehoe killed her. They took the victims and Kehoe's... I mean, come on. They could just wear masks. Like, what is with these sick individuals? A lot of these bastards can get the same crime done without actually killing people, but they just choose to kill people. I mean, that's just really messed up. They took the victims in Kehoe's vehicle to the Illinois Bayou, where they taped rocks to them and threw each family member in the swamp. The bodies were discovered in Lake Dardanelle near Russellville, Arkansas, in late June 96. Kehoe and his family took the stolen property to a motel in Spokane, Washington, by way of the Christian Identity Community of Elohim City, Oklahoma. William Mueller had put some of his stolen firearms into a federal firearms license registry as insurance against potential theft. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives used the ID numbers to the registry to trace the stolen firearms to several other men who confirmed they had purchased them in Spokane from Chevie Kehoe and his father, Kirby. The 97 shootout, February 15, 1997, Kehoe and his brother Shane were involved in a shootout with an Ohio State Highway Patrol trooper, John Harold Harker, and a Clinton County Sheriff's Office Deputy Robert Gates in Wilmington, Ohio. These guys really get around. The Highway Patrol trooper had stopped their vehicle, a blue Chevy Suburban. Wow. Chevie Kehoe drives a Chevy. For driving too slowly and erratically on the road, and found the license plate and registration had expired. The brothers also failed to produce any driver's licenses. Chevy, the driver, complied with the officer's orders to get out of the car, but warned him against touching him when he tried to search him. The deputy noticed the trouble the state trooper was having with Chevy and stopped to help. As one of the officers called for a tow truck to impound the vehicle, Chevy suddenly began to dash back to the vehicle with the officers in pursuit. The officers had pinned Chevy to a patrol car and were trying to subdue him when Shane produced a handgun from his passenger seat and opened fire on the officers, allowing Chevy to jump back into the Suburban and escape. Shane himself fled into the nearby woods. Wow, so his brother didn't wait for him? Where police searched unsuccessfully for him the whole day, and he managed to elude all the police. Wow. Later that day, Chevy was involved in a shootout in an electrical supply company parking lot with two Wilmington police officers, Richard Rick Wood and Sergeant Robert Bob Martin. During the second shootout, a passerby motorist, 56-year-old Frank Marsden, was hit in the shoulder. The two shootouts were recorded on both the trooper and the sergeant's dash cam in their patrol vehicle. So this is 1997. And was widely broadcast in the media at the time. Footage of the shootout was first aired in 97 on Fox's World's Scariest Police Shootouts. Since then, it has been shown on television programs such as Most Shocking Police in Pursuit, World's Most Amazing Videos, and Under Fire. I don't know if I'd call that amazing. On the run and arrest after fleeing from police, Chevy and Shane Kehoe traveled secretly with their families through different states before settling in a ranch in Utah. Wait, so they both got away. Wow, what does that say about Ohio law enforcement? They worked for the local ranch owner for the time, but disputes between the brothers over Chevy's extremist ideology grew bitter and eventually violent, and ultimately Shane left, taking his family with him. He subsequently surrendered to local police and directed them and the FBI back to the Utah ranch, where Chevie Kehoe was arrested on June 17, 1997. Was that a plea deal or something? That's kind of messed up against his own brother. In federal court, Kehoe was charged with racketeer, influenced, and corrupt organizations, the RICO statute, murdering in aid of racketeering, and robbery conspiracy. Kehoe denies the criminal accusations against him and has filed appeals. His appeals have been denied. Sentencing on February 20th, 98, Kehoe pled guilty in Ohio State Court for felonious assault, attempted murder, and carrying a concealed weapon related to a February 15th, 97 shootout in Wilmington, Ohio, with an Ohio State Highway Patrol trooper and a Clinton County Sheriff's deputy during a traffic stop resulting from expired tags on his 1977 Chevrolet Suburban. In 99, Kehoe was convicted in federal court for the January 96 murders of gun dealer William Mueller, his wife Nancy Mueller, and her 8-year-old daughter Sarah Powell. He received 3 sentences of life in prison without the... You know what's the other thing that's really messed up about that case? So they look like riot police. Why not just break the damn door down, get everything you need, and leave? It's just weird. It's just weird. I mean, less of a chance of getting caught, too, right? I mean, they got masks on. They got all the riot gear. I mean, you don't even have to encounter any other people. He received 3 life sentences in prison without possibility of parole. Kehoe's mother, Gloria, and his younger brother, Shane, served as prosecution witness and testified against him at the trial. However, they both kept the secret until he got caught. Shane received a 24-year prison sentence for attempted murder and weapons possession due to his role in the Ohio shootout. Kehoe was imprisoned at U.S. Penitentiary Florence ADX in Fremont County, Colorado, under Federal Bureau of Prisons Register Number 213000009. In November 2019, he was transferred to U.S. Penitentiary Florence High. On December 18, 2020, Kehoe was transferred to U.S. Penitentiary McCreary in Kentucky. As of April 2021, Kehoe is held at U.S. Penitentiary Big Sandy in Inez. Oklahoma City bombing. Kehoe has been accused by his brother Shane and a Spokane motel manager of being involved in or having prior knowledge of the Oklahoma City bombings. The Oklahoma City bombing on April 19, 1995. Shane claimed to have knowledge of Chevy's involvement in the bombing shortly after he was sentenced for his role in the shootout. The manager of the Shadow Motel in Spokane claimed to have seen Chevy with convicted bomber Timothy McVeigh at the motel 4 to 6 months prior to the bombing. The manager also claimed on the morning of the bombing, Chevy showed up to the motel and asked him to put on CNN and became ecstatic when news of the bombing appeared. The manager also claimed that Chevy had told him in the days prior that something big would happen on April 19th. A lot of stuff seems to happen on April 19th and April 20th. Kehoe denied the allegations, and the FBI found no evidence that McVeigh had ever traveled to Spokane. It is curious, though, in some of these cases where If someone wasn't involved, but they wanted to say they were involved, and then would federal officials or law enforcement officials try to pin certain crimes on certain individuals that they were innocent of in order to clean up loose ends? Again, I'm not claiming to know. But these are the individuals that Israel Keys associated with and his family was friends with. So let's continue here with Israel Keys. Keys served in the U.S. Army from 98 to 2001 at Fort Lewis, Fort Hood, and in Egypt. While at Fort Lewis, he served on a mortar team in the 1st Battalion, 5th Infantry, 25th Infantry Division. Former Army friends of Keys have noticed his quiet demeanor and habit of keeping to himself. On weekends, he was reported to drink heavily, consumed entire bottles of his favorite drink, Wild Turkey Bourbon. Keys was also a fan of the hip-hop duo Insane Clown Posse and displayed posters of the musical act in the barracks. In 2007, Keys started a construction business in Alaska, Keys Construction, working as a handyman, contractor, and construction worker. Murders. Keys targeted random people all across the U.S. to avoid detection with months of planning before he committed a particular crime. He specifically went for campgrounds and isolated locations. He only used guns when he had to and preferred strangulation as he liked to see them suffer. He allegedly had a rule that he would never kill children or any adult who had a child, purportedly because he had a daughter. Keys admitted to investigators that he killed 4 people in Washington state, claims that he was the subject of an active investigation by the state police and the FBI. He did not have a felony criminal record in Washington, although he had been cited in Thurston County for driving without a valid license and in an earlier incident pleaded guilty to driving under the influence. Authorities were reviewing unsolved murder and missing persons cases to determine which, if any, may be linked to Keys. Keys claimed he committed his first murder in 98 before pausing for 3 years while he served in the U.S. Army before resuming his killing spree in 2001 following his discharge. Keys confessed to at least 1 murder in New York State. In late 2012, authorities had not determined the age or gender or identity of the victim or when and where the murder may have occurred, but regarded the confession as credible. So this is a New York State murder. Keys had tied to New York. He owned 10 acres and a dilapidated cabin in the town of Constable. It's a curious name. He also confessed to committing bank robberies in New York and Texas. The FBI later confirmed that Keys robbed the Community Bank branch in Tupper Lake, New York in April 2009. He also told authorities that he burglarized a Texas home and set it on fire. Authorities claim Keys may have murdered a woman believed to be Deborah Feldman in April 2009 in New Jersey and buried her near Tupper Lake, New York. He also admitted to murdering Bill and Lorraine Currier of Essex, Vermont. Keys broke into the Currier home on the night of June 8, 2011 and tied them up before driving them to an abandoned farmhouse, where he shot Bill before sexually assaulting and strangling Lorraine. Their bodies have never been found. 2 years prior, Keys hid a murder kit which he later used near the Currier home. After the murders, he moved most of the contents to a new hiding place in Parrishville, New York, and they remained until after his arrest. Keys' last known victim was 18-year-old Samantha Koenig, a coffee booth employee in Anchorage, Alaska. Keys kidnapped Koenig from her workplace on February 1st, 2012, took her debit card and other property, sexually assaulted her, and then killed her the following day. He left her body in a shed and went to New Orleans, where he departed on a pre-booked 2-week cruise with his family in the Gulf of Mexico. When he returned to Alaska, he removed Koenig's body from the shed, applied makeup to the corpse's face, sewed her eyes open with fishing line, and snapped a picture of a 4-day-old issue of Anchorage Daily News alongside her body, posed to appear that she was still alive. After demanding $30,000 in ransom, Keys dismembered Koenig's body and disposed of it in Matanuska Lake, north of Anchorage. An FBI report stated that Keys burglarized 20 to 30 homes across the U.S. and robbed several banks between 2001 and 2012. He may be linked to as many as 11 deaths in the U.S. and potentially even more victims outside the country. That's curious why they think that as well. Keys planned murders long ahead of time and took extraordinary action to avoid detection. Unlike most serial killers, he did not have a victim profile, saying he chose a victim randomly. He usually killed far from home and never in the same area twice. On his murder trips, he kept his mobile phone turned off and paid for items with cash. He had no connection to any of his victims. For the Courier murders, Keyes flew to Chicago, where he rented a car to drive 1,000 miles to Vermont. He then used the kill kit he had hidden 2 years earlier to perform the murders. Keyes admired Ted Bundy and shared many similarities with him. Both were methodical and felt as though they possessed their victims. However, there are noticeable differences. Bundy's murders were spread throughout the country mainly because he lived in many different areas and not as an intentional effort to avoid detection like with Keyes. Bundy targeted only attractive young women, while Keyes, unlike most serial killers, had no particular type of victim. Keyes also called Dennis Rader a wimp for apologizing in court for his crimes. Investigation and arrest. After Koenig's murder, Keyes demanded ransom money and police were able to track withdrawals from an account as he moved throughout the southwestern U.S. During that time, the police controversially refused to release surveillance video of Koenig's abduction. Keyes was arrested by Texas Highway Patrol Corporal Brian Henry and Texas Ranger Stephen Rayburn in the parking lot of the Cotton Patch Cafe in Lufkin, Texas, on the morning of March 13, 2012. Keyes had been exceeding the speed limit, and his odd behavior during the traffic stop prompted further investigation. Local police had also been notified about a vehicle matching Keyes that had been driven by the suspect using Koenig's debit card through New Mexico and Arizona. So it looks like Keyes just really got sloppy. I mean, he's using his victim's debit card, no longer using cash, and killing in his home state of Alaska. I mean, this is weird. Keyes was subsequently extradited to Alaska, where he confessed to the murder. He was represented by Alaska federal defender Rich Kartner. Keyes was indicted in the case, and his trial was scheduled to begin March 2013. While incarcerated, Keyes spoke to investigators several times. He cooperated to an extent, confessing to some of his crimes, and stated a wish to be executed within a year. Keyes said he wanted to avoid publicity due to the negative attention his young daughter might face, but largely stopped cooperating after his identity was discussed in the media. On Wednesday, May 23, 2012, Keyes attempted to escape during a routine hearing. Keyes broke his leg irons, how did he do that, and jumped over the railing, but a taser was used in the efforts to quickly subdue him. While being held in jail at the Anchorage Correctional Complex on suspicion of murder, Keyes managed to conceal a razor blade. He died by suicide December 2nd, 2012, via self-inflicted wrist cuts and attempted strangulation. A suicide note found under his body consisted of an ode to murder, but offered no clues about other possible victims. In 2020, the FBI released the drawings of 11 skulls and 1 pentagram, which had been drawn in blood and found underneath Keyes' jail cell bed after his suicide. One of the drawings included the phrase, "We are one," written at the bottom. The FBI believes the number of skulls correlates with what are believed to be the total number of victims. So quite a morbid tale with some unusual twists and turns. So let's look at the Unsolved Mysteries subreddit, a great subreddit on true crime. And regarding a few posts here regarding Israel Keyes, this is posted by Megs1288 9 months ago. I was listening to a podcast on Israel Keyes, and as unsettling as his crimes were, what really set off my alarm bells was when podcasters pointed out how easily he would have been able to keep going had he not gotten cocky when he murdered Samantha Koenig. If you don't know about the Samantha Koenig ransom note, look it up, beware, it's very disturbing. Keyes described in jail interviews how he would make it look like an accident. And anytime they found the bodies of his victims, they would be marked as an accident. He had been active since 97 and caught in 2012. He said he had no rhyme or reason. He buried murder kits in random locations, and when he was in the area, he'd find them and choose his victim at random near the site of the bucket. He also would only kill at random without his kill pack. He had a live-in girlfriend and a daughter. He killed Samantha in his garage with his family in the house, and they had no clue. Not even the girlfriend could say he was abusive or anything. He has been looked into for the Maura Murray case, and they couldn't pin him in her area, but there's definitely more people like Israel Keys out there, so my real question is, how many missing persons are the victims of Israel Keys, even the victims of people like him? How many Israel Keys are there out there right now, and how close are we to them? I actually went over that in my Missing podcast. And FBI.gov has a page on Israel Keys. There's an article here dated August 13th, 2013, seeking the public's assistance, new information released in serial killer case. And I mean, this is mostly just what we went over in the Wikipedia. And he does look pretty remorseless here in his interviews. But what's interesting here is this map of known travel and activity between 97 and 2012. It's pretty spooky. I mean, this guy got around. I mean, he really, really got around. It looks like, yeah, they even placed him in Central America. But here's the breakdown here. June 1st to September 1st, abduction and rape of an unknown female near Maupin, Oregon. July 9th, 98 to July 8th, 2001, served in the U.S. Army, Fort Lewis, Washington, processed out of Albany, New York. 98 to 2001, U.S. Army duty station, Fort Lewis, Washington. 2001 to 2007, resided in Nia Bay, Washington. September 28th, 99, vehicle rental enterprise, Lakewood, Washington. November 26th, 99, vehicle rental USAVE, Fort Lewis, Washington. November 29th, 99, vehicle rental USAVE, Fort Lewis, Washington. January 4th, 2000, vehicle rental budget, Spokane, Washington. He even switches up which rental companies he uses. Spokane, Washington. January 15th to June 1st, 2000, temporary duty assignment in Egypt. July 26, 2000, vehicle rental enterprise, Lakewood, Washington. April 29, 2002, hotel reservation, Hong Kong Inn, Port Angeles, Washington. August 28, 2003, hotel reservation, Portside Inn, Port Angeles, Washington. October 19th, 2003, hotel reservation, Portside Inn, Port Angeles, Washington. February 6th to 13th, 2004, vehicle rental enterprise, silver Volkswagen Jetta, Utah license plate 267WVW. Keys drove 522 miles, did not have permission to leave the state, Salt Lake City, Utah. October 6th through 16th, 2004, Southwest Airlines flight, Seattle, Washington to Manchester, New Hampshire, round trip. That actually puts him in New Hampshire. Wow. So that's not just, yeah, that's curious. That's curious. Vehicle rental enterprise, red Kia Amante, license plate 1230139. Keys drove 1,745 miles, and he did have permission to leave the state. Huh. That's weird. That's weird. So there was a Southwest airline flight, but then he also drove 1,745 miles. February 27th, and so that puts him in New Hampshire in October. Huh. So the people that believe he might have been involved with the Maura Murray disappearance, so that's February 9th, 2004. Between February 6th and 13th, he had a vehicle rental, and he was driving 522 miles, Salt Lake City, Utah. Could he have made it? Seems unlikely, but unless, I mean, I guess if they have his toll booth footage to really verify his movements. February 27, 2005, Keys wrote an email that he arrived back from visiting friends in Port Angeles, Washington at 3 a.m. No timestamp on the email. Nia Bay, Washington. How could there be no timestamp on the email? Huh. March 1st, 2005, day canoe trip to unspecified location, spotted camping at location only accessible by boat in Washington State. March 12th, 2005, day canoe trip to unspecified lake, also went to Hoco River in northwest Washington, parked truck in vicinity. April 9th, 2005, boat purchase pickup, Port Angeles, Washington. June 17th, 2005, boating and campfire at unspecified lake, Washington State. He's doing a lot of boating. October 3rd to 13th, 2005, TACA Airlines flight, Los Angeles, California to El Salvador, round trip. The MK Ultra theorists might think that Israel Keys, like many other individuals, might have undergone some MK Ultra experiments while in the military and then was used as some kind of Manchurian candidate sleeper agent of sorts to do the government's bidding. I mean, this is really, really creepy. So he's just going to El Salvador randomly, October 3rd to 13th, 2005. Now, October 6th, 2013, so a number of years later, he has a vehicle rental in Belize. But how did he get there? December 3rd, 2005, hotel reservation. Wait a second. Is that correct? October 6, 2013, vehicle rental in Belize? Yeah, it says 2013, even though he died December 2nd, 2012. What does that mean? Did he have a scheduled rental? Huh. This is chronological, so does that mean... What does that mean? It says this isn't chronological, and this entry is between October 3rd and 13th, 2005 and December 3rd, 2005. So does that mean between October 3rd, 2005 and December 3rd, 2005, he made a budget rental in Belize for October 6th, 2013? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Unless there's a typo here. December 3rd, 2005, hotel reservation, days in Gresham, Oregon. February 11, 2006, Washington State Ferry, Port Townsend, Washington. April 22nd, 2006, boat rental, Island Boat Rentals, Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. April 23rd, 2006, hotel reservation, Travelers Inn, Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. May 10th to 15th, 2006, Southwest Airlines flight, Portland, Oregon to San Diego, California, round trip. June 11th, 2006, hotel reservation, Red Lion, Port Angeles, Washington. June 22nd, 2006, drove from Nia Bay, Washington to Ridgefield, Washington to pick up ATVs for work. September 1st to September 7th, 2006, Alaska Airlines flight, Seattle, Washington to Anchorage, Alaska, round trip. October 21st to 23rd, 2006, Alaska Airlines flight, Seattle to San Diego, round trip. October 22nd, 2006, pedestrian border crossing, Tijuana, Mexico to San Diego. Huh. So he's going to Mexico as well. October 23rd, 2006, hotel reservation, Quality Inn and Suites, San Diego, California. November 8th to 13th, 2006, Alaska Airlines flight, Seattle to Anchorage. February 5th through 8th, 2007, Southwest Airlines flight, Seattle to Vegas. March 5th, 2007, hotel reservation, Bonaparte Motel, Cache Creek, British Columbia, Canada. March 7th, 2007, hotel reservation, Cedar Lodge, Watson Lake, Yukon, Canada. March 8th, 2007, hotel reservation, Talbot Arm Motel, Destruction Bay, Yukon, Canada. Is that appropriately titled? March 8th, 2007, reservation at the Yukon Motel and Restaurant, Teslin, Yukon, Canada. March 9th, 2007, crossed the border via the Alaska-Canadian Highway. April 24, 2007, Alaska Airlines flight Anchorage to Oakland, California. April 24th to May 3rd, 2007, vehicle rental Avis. He's really hitting up like every single vehicle rental place. Kia Rio, California, license plate 5YBN060, drove 1,144 miles, Oakland, California. April 26, 2007, border crossing from Tijuana, Mexico to San Diego, California. Ate at a restaurant in Tijuana. April 27, 2007, border crossing from San Diego to Tijuana. This is going back and forth. April 27th to 28th, 2007, hotel reservation Best Western, Kettleman City, California. April 28th to April 30th, 2007, hotel reservation The Shabliss Inn, Napa, California. April 30th, 2007, border crossing from Tijuana, Mexico to San Diego, California. May 1st, 2007, kayak rental, River's Edge, Healdsburg, California. May 1st, also May 1st, CalMart transaction, Calistoga, California. May 3rd, 2007, reservation at Safari West Wildlife Preserve in Santa Rosa, California. May 3rd, 2007, Southwest Airlines flight, Oakland, California to Seattle, Washington. May 3rd through 4th, 2007, hotel reservation Best Western, Seattle, Washington. May 4th, 2007, vehicle rental Avis, a Mitsubishi Endeavor, Texas license plate 290PNK, drove 111 miles, Seattle, Washington. May 4th, 2007, Alaska Airlines flight, Seattle to Anchorage. August 26th to September 6th, 2007, Alaska Airlines flight, this is Anchorage to Seattle round trip. These are all 2007. So August 29th, Ramada Inn reservation in Sequim, Washington. August 30th, La Quinta in Linwood, Washington. August 30th, Washington State Ferry in Edmonds, Washington. August 31st, Ramada Inn reservation, Sequim, Washington. September 2nd, Hertz vehicle rental, Seattle, Washington. September 2nd through the 6th, 2007, Delta Airlines. He's also switching up airlines. Seattle to Salt Lake City. September 2nd, vehicle rental Advantage, Salt Lake City, Utah. Law enforcement believes Keys was in Utah and Wyoming from September 2nd to September 6, 2007. September 6th, transaction at Salt Lake City International Airport. September 6th, transaction at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. October 29th through November 2nd, Alaska Airlines flight, Anchorage to LA. Vehicle rental white Mitsubishi Lancer, California license plate 5WFX008, drove 95 miles, did have permission to leave the state. December 4th, Thrifty vehicle rental, 2008, Chrysler Sebring convertible, Washington plate 303DKF, Seattle. December 4th, Washington State Ferry, Edmonds, Washington. December 5th, transaction at the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. December 8th through 11th, vehicle rental Enterprise, silver Mitsubishi Galant, drove 537 miles, did not have permission to leave the state, went to Fort Wayne, Indiana. The original return date was December 10th, but apparently he didn't return it till the 11th. Was there a delay? Was there a crime? December 16th, vehicle rental Thrifty, 2007 Dodge Caliber, Washington plate 168XUN, Seattle. Also December 16th, Washington State Ferry, Kingston, Washington. Also December 16th of that same year, 2007, hotel reservation at the Ramada Inn, Sequim, Washington. December 17th, transaction at the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. January 28th, 2008, so now the following are all 2008 sightings. American Airlines, Alaska Airlines flights, Anchorage to Dallas, and then Texas to Mobile, Alabama. January 28th to February 6th, vehicle rental Thrifty, a 2008 Hyundai Sonata, Alabama plate 95B9427, drove 691 miles, Mobile, Alabama. February 2nd, transaction at Fleet Travel Center in Slidell, Louisiana. February 6th, American Airlines flight Mobile, Alabama to Dallas, Texas. February 6th, Alaska Airlines flight Dallas to Seattle. February 6th to 15th, vehicle rental Thrifty, 2007 Ford Focus, Washington plate 257DB4, drove 1,152 miles, Seattle, Washington. February 10th, 2008, Washington State Ferry, Edmonds, Washington, and also Kingston, Washington. February 11th, Alaska Airlines flight, Seattle to Anchorage. July 3rd through the 7th, Delta Airlines flight, Anchorage to Salt Lake City, Utah, round trip, vehicle rental at Avis, Salt Lake City. September 16th through 19th, Alaska Airlines flight, Anchorage to LA, vehicle rental Thrifty, 2008 Kia Optima, California plate 6DCF409, drove 991 miles, Los Angeles. October 24th, Alaska Airlines flight, Anchorage to Seattle. October 25th, Northwest Airlines flight, Seattle to Minneapolis. October 25th, Northwest Airlines flight, Minneapolis to Grand Forks, North Dakota. What's he doing there? October 30th, U.S. Airways flight, Phoenix to San Francisco. Wow, a lot of movement here around Halloween. October 31st, Alaska Airlines flight, San Francisco to Seattle. October 31st to November 5th, vehicle rental Thrifty, a 2008 PT Cruiser, Washington plate 443XQQ, drove 626 miles, Seattle, Washington. November 1st, hotel reservation at Sequim Inn in Sequim, Washington. November 2nd, Alaska Airlines flight Seattle to Boston. November 5th, Alaska Airlines flight Seattle to Anchorage. December 5th through 7th, Alaska Airlines flight Anchorage to Honolulu, Hawaii. December 11th to 25th, Alaska Airlines flight Anchorage to Cancun, Mexico. So he's going to Hawaii, then Mexico. December 11th, 2008, hotel reservation at the Hotel Playa La Media Luna, Isla Mujeres, Mexico. December 11th through 17th, vehicle rental Hertz, Merida, Yucatan, Mexico. December 20th to 25th, 2008, hotel reservation Hotel Playa La Media Luna, Isla Mujeres, Mexico. February 23rd to 27th, 2009, Alaska Airlines flight Anchorage to Burbank, California. April 1st to 14th, Alaska Airlines flight Anchorage to Seattle. April 2nd through 7th, vehicle rental Thrifty 2009 Dodge Charger, Washington plate 877YUG, drove 637 miles, Seattle. April 2nd, 2009, transaction at Hobuck Beach Camping, Nia Bay, Washington. April 7th, hotel reservation Sequim Quality Inn and Suites, Sequim, Washington. April 7th through 14th, Southwest Airlines flight Seattle to Manchester, New Hampshire. Vehicle rental Thrifty 2007 Hyundai Sonata, New Hampshire plate X74QFZ, drove 1,047 miles, Manchester, New Hampshire. April 9th, 2009, hotel reservation Highlander Inn in Manchester, New Hampshire. April 9th, 2009, kidnapping murder of East Coast victim, Tupper Lake, New York. April 10th, bank robbery, Tupper Lake, New York. So he commits kidnapping, murder, then a bank robbery back to back. This guy's busy that April 2009. So April 10th, hotel reservation Hampton Inn in Colchester, Vermont. June 20th, hotel reservation extended stay Anchorage, Alaska. September 10th, hotel reservation Puffin Inn in Anchorage, Alaska. October 6th, Era Alaska flight, Anchorage to Kenai, Alaska. December 17th, 2009, Alaska Airlines flight, Anchorage to Orlando, Florida, went on celebrity cruise visiting San Juan, St. Croix, St. Kitts, Panama, and St. John. This guy really does get around. December 29, 2009, Alaska Airlines flight, Orlando to Anchorage. July 7th, 2010, so the following are all 2010 listing now. So he doesn't seem to move. They don't have the tracking from December to July. July 7th, 2010, Alaska Airlines flight, Anchorage to Seattle. July 7th through 9th, 2010, vehicle rental Thrifty, a 2010 Chevy Malibu, Washington plate 6JCZ721, drove 393 miles, Seattle. July 9th, Alaska Airlines flight Seattle to Sacramento, California. July 9th through 12th, vehicle rental Enterprise Black Ford Focus, California plate 6KKC870, drove 232 miles, Sacramento, California. July 11th, 2010, hotel reservation Super 8 Motel, Auburn, California. July 12th, Alaska Airlines Sacramento to Anchorage. July 17th, Frontier Airlines Anchorage to Denver. July 18th to 22nd, hotel reservation Flamingo Hotel in Vegas. July 20th, 2010, transaction at Harrah's box office in Vegas. Also July 20th, transaction Midwest Frontier, unknown location. July 21st, 2010, United Airlines flight, unknown location. July 22nd, 2010, Alaska Airlines flight, Vegas to Anchorage. October 15th, Alaska Airlines flight, Anchorage to Chicago. October 15th, American Airlines flight Chicago to Boston. October 15th to 25th, vehicle rental Enterprise in Boston. In October 21st, 2010, he is in Maine. October 25th, American Airlines flight Boston to Chicago, and then Chicago to Anchorage. April 23rd to 25th, Alaska Airlines flight Anchorage to Juneau. April 23rd, okay, this is already 2011 now, so from October to we jump to April 2011, where he goes to Juneau. Then April 23rd, 2011, vehicle rental Avis in Juneau. Hotel reservation Best Western, also in Juneau. April 28th, transaction at Cars Fuel, possibly at North Folk Eagle River Trailhead in Eagle River, Alaska. June 2nd, Alaska Airlines flight Anchorage to Chicago. June 2nd to June 15th, vehicle rental Hertz, Des Plaines, Illinois. June 3rd, multiple transactions, Indiana Toll Road. June 8th, Bill and Lorraine Currier kidnapped, murdered in Essex, Vermont. June 9th, hotel reservation, Handy Suites, Essex, Vermont. June 15th, Continental Airlines, Chicago to San Fran. June 15th to 16th, hotel reservation, Days Inn, San Francisco. June 16th, Continental Airlines, flight San Fran to Anchorage. February 1st, 2012, now moving into 2012, from June 16th, 2011 to February 1st, 2012, Samantha Koenig, kidnapped, murdered, Anchorage. February 2nd through 17th, Alaska Airlines flight, Anchorage to Houston, Texas. Vehicle rental, Thrifty, 2011 Kia, Texas plate CN8 M857, drove 2,847 miles, Houston, Texas. February 2nd through 5th, hotel reservation, America's Best Value Inn, Lafayette, Louisiana. February 6th through 11th, Carnival Cruise Line trip, round trip from New Orleans. February 6th, hotel reservation, Prytania Park Hotel, New Orleans. February 16th, National Bank of Texas robbery, Azle, Texas. So he's squeezing in these robberies between the murders. I mean, this guy is some kind of career criminal. February 24th, 2012, he posted the ransom note for Samantha Koenig at Connors Bog Park, Anchorage, Alaska. March 1st, used Samantha Koenig's debit card to make an ATM withdrawal, Anchorage. March 6th, Alaska Airlines flight, Anchorage to Vegas. March 7th, 2012, used Koenig's debit card to make ATM withdrawal, Wilcox, Arizona. March 8th in Lordsburg, New Mexico, and also March 8th in Shefford, Texas, using her ATM card. On March 10th, also using the ATM card in Humble, Texas. It would have been a little bit more justified, I guess, if he was caught in Humble, Texas. But he was arrested March 3rd, 2012. Keys arrested in Lufkin, Texas. And then December 2nd, 2012, commits suicide in a jail cell in Anchorage. So that is a list of Key's known movements. So some responses in the post on the Reddit here. Possible victims versus confirmed victims. So, of course, Samantha Koenig, abducted from Anchorage, Alaska, February 2nd, 2012. Lorraine and Bill Currier, abducted from their home in Essex, Vermont, June 8th, 2011. So, here are the confirmed victims of Israel Keys. Samantha Koenig, abducted from Anchorage, Alaska, February 2nd, 2012. And some Israel Keys researchers, a certain contingent, I don't think the majority, a certain percentage, however minor, I believe they only agree that 100% verified kills might only consist of Samantha Koenig. And they still question that he's a serial killer. Not that he's not that he didn't kill all these other individuals, just in terms of what 100% irrefutable proof is available, they only grant Keys Samantha Koenig. And I'm going to read the detailed account of the Samantha Koenig murder. It is obviously very difficult to read here. So, this is alaskapublic.org. Police released detailed account of Koenig murder by Josh Edge, December 4th, 2012. Law enforcement provides further detail concerning the abduction and murder of Samantha Koenig. Anchorage, Alaska. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Alaska, the FBI, and the Anchorage Police Department, after speaking to family members, are able to release additional details of the kidnapping and murder of Samantha Koenig. These details are being provided both to fully explain the courage and resolve Samantha displayed in the final hours of her life, as well as the hopes that the release of additional details will help investigations of other murders committed by Israel Keys. Prior to February 1st, 2012, Keys had selected the Common Grounds coffee stand located on Tudor Road for the site of the abduction. He did this after considering other coffee stands, but chose Common Grounds because of its location and because it was open later than other coffee stands. Keys had never met or seen Samantha Koenig before. He approached the coffee stand just prior to closing time wearing a ski mask and ordered a coffee. Samantha made the coffee, handed it to Keys. He then pulled out a gun and demanded money. Samantha complied, and then Keys forced himself inside the coffee stand and tied Samantha's hands with zip ties. He asked where her car was, and she told him that she did not have a vehicle. Keys then forcibly walked her out of the coffee stand toward Tudor Road. And times like these are where you really wish that there were, I don't even want to say a good Samaritan, an absolute psychopath who doesn't believe in harming innocent people, who would, do what was necessary to Israel Keys. And it's a damn shame that such an individual was not present here. Or maybe a psycho killer that just didn't believe in harming women and children. That's the kind of individual that needed to walk by and see this that day. Samantha broke away from Keys and tried to run away. Keys chased her and tackled her to the ground. He put one arm around her and pointed a gun at her body with the other hand, telling her that she needed to cooperate, that the gun had very quiet ammo, and that she should not do anything to make him kill her. They walked across Tudor Road into the parking lot between the IHOP restaurant and the Dairy Queen, where Keys' white truck was parked. Keys had previously prepared the truck for the abduction by taking the mounted toolboxes off the bed of the truck, as well as removing the license plates. Keys then bound Samantha in the truck and drove away. And of course, the advice is never let a possible abductor take you to a secondary location, because statistically, you might be as good as dead. Obviously, there are outlier cases, but, to rely on being an outlier, many agree that that's probably not the smart thing to do. So basically, you fight for your life at the first location. Do not allow yourself to be transported to that second location, no matter what. And it sounds kind of gruesome to basically say if you die, you die. It's also hard to say you're dead anyway. But again, the statistics are the statistics. If you have further information where you really believe that the abductor might not kill you at the second location, then I guess that would be a different situation. But in most of these stranger abductions, going to a secondary location is usually the way to demise, unfortunately. Keys drove around town explaining to Samantha this was a kidnapping for ransom. Samantha told Keys that her family did not have much money and that Keys was not likely to get much in ransom. Keys explained that they will raise money for the ransom by seeking the public's help. Keys convinced Samantha that if she cooperated, she would be returned to her family unharmed. Samantha believed Keys and tried to talk to him in an effort to convince him to release her. At some point on the drive, Keys realized that Samantha did not have her cell phone, which was necessary for his plan to demand ransom money by sending a text message from her phone. He drove back to Common Grands and re-entered the coffee stand, leaving Samantha bound in the truck. He retrieved the cell phone, got back to the truck, drove away. And this is all just even hard to go through because you can only imagine what thoughts were going through her mind. And again, unfortunately, there was not a psycho killer who did not believe in harming women and children present there who would have done what was necessary to Israel Keys at this time. The first message was to Samantha's boyfriend and the second to the owner of the Common Grounds. The text messages made it appear that Samantha just had a bad day, was leaving town for the weekend. Keys then took the battery out of Samantha's phone. Keys asked Samantha for her debit card. Samantha told Keys that she shared a bank account with her boyfriend and that his ATM card was in the truck that they shared. Samantha told Keys where her house was and gave him the PIN number to the ATM card. Keys put Samantha in the shed in front of his house, bound her, and turned the radio up in the shed so no one would hear if she screamed. He also told her that he had a police scanner and would know if she attempted to alert the neighbors. Keys drove to Samantha's house, retrieved the ATM card from her truck. While he was at Samantha's, he was confronted by her boyfriend, who yelled at him and then went back in the house to get help. Keys ran back to his truck and left the area before he could be found. He drove to an ATM machine to test the PIN number provided by Samantha. He then returned to the shed. Keys then sexually assaulted Samantha and asphyxiated her. Keys left her in the shed and then went back inside his house where he packed for a pre-planned cruise that he was taking from New Orleans. He left early that morning, February 2nd, for the cruise. Keys returned to Anchorage on February 17, 2012. He then began preparing a ransom note that demanded money be placed in this account connected with the ATM card. And I don't know what makes the Israel Keys case that much more sick and twisted, but this guy is so detached from anything. I mean, he kills an innocent young individual and then just goes on vacation like nothing. And if that's not bad enough, he comes back and just methodically, as if it's just a day at the office, continues with this ransom plot. Yeah, I mean, this guy is really messed up. He went into the shed, retrieved Samantha's body, taking steps to make it appear she was still alive, then took a Polaroid picture of her tied up. The photo also showed Key's arm holding the Anchorage Daily News from February 13th, 2012. He photocopied the photo and, using a manual typewriter he purchased, typed a ransom demand for $30,000 on the back of the photo. After preparing the note and photo, he placed it in Connors Bog Park under a memorial flyer of a dog named Albert. Then, using Samantha's cell phone, he texted her boyfriend in substance that the ransom note was under Albert in Connors Bog Park. The note was recovered by APD. In the days that followed, Keyes dismembered Samantha's body, drove out to Matanuska Lake, where he cut a hole in the ice and put her body in the lake. Meanwhile, Samantha's father, James Koenig, deposited reward money, which had been generally donated by members of the community, into the account connected with Samantha's ATM card. The plan was to attempt to catch the perpetrator by tracking any withdrawals. ATM withdrawals were made in Anchorage, and then in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. Authorities were able to determine that the perpetrator of these withdrawals was driving a white Ford Focus. The FBI and the Texas Rangers tracked the ATM withdrawals as they occurred. Ultimately, Corporal Brian Henry of the Texas Highway Patrol pulled over a white Ford Focus matching the description Keyes was driving. Henry, along with the Texas Ranger Steve Rayburn, obtained enough information during the traffic stop to search the Focus. Samantha's telephone was found in the car, and the ATM card was found in Keyes' wallet. Wow. Yeah, that was tough. So, on the list of so-called confirmed kills, some people put Lorraine and Bill Currier missing from Essex, Vermont. Technically, they're missing. On the charlieproject.org, they have their case here, and again, they are listed as missing. Their bodies have never been recovered, so I mean, it's difficult to say with 100% definitive certainty that they're dead, although they seem to be. And if they are, that Israel Keyes was the perpetrator or the sole perpetrator. Details of the disappearance here. Lorraine is missing with her husband, William, from Essex, Vermont. They were last seen by their respective co-workers when they left work 5 p.m. June 8, 2011. Both of them made it to their home on Colbert Street, but neither of them showed up for the work the next day, which is uncharacteristic of them. They have never been heard from again. When police went to the residence, they found all the doors locked. However, a window and an interior door connecting the house to the garage was newly broken, and the home's phone line had been cut. The Courier's dark green 96 Saturn SL2 sedan with the Vermont plate ABF 818 was missing, as was a snub-nosed Ruger 38 cal handgun Lorraine had recently purchased. Wow, it's a damn shame she didn't get to use that on whomever abducted them. A photo of the sedan is posted with this case summary. Lorraine's 2 pairs of eyeglasses and her contact lenses were left behind, but her purse and wallet were missing. 2 days after the Couriers went missing, the car was found abandoned in a parking lot in the 200 block of Pearl Street in Essex Junction, next to a dumpster between 2 apartment buildings. This is less than a mile from their home and a short walk from the bus stop. Investigators released a sketch of an unidentified man whom a witness may have seen driving the car. The drawing is posted with the case summary. And this drawing, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that looks like Israel Keyes. It doesn't quite look like him, but again, when did this witness see them driving the car? Was it still light out? And this guy is depicted as having a beard. Israel Keyes doesn't have a beard here. Unless he was wearing a fake beard, if the bastard thought of that. The hair length does appear to match. He's got somewhat long hair, a little bit longer than normal hair. Okay. July 2012, authorities announced they believed the Couriers had been murdered and that they had a suspect, Israel Keyes. He owned a rundown rural cabin in Constable, New York, a town not far from Essex. He checked into an Essex hotel the day before the Couriers vanished, then checked out the day after. I mean, that is pretty damning. I mean, that's pretty damning information there. Damning coincidences. The other thing is, for a supposedly careful guy, Why would Keyes kill so close to where his cabin is? Like, he travels all over the country and outside of the country. Wouldn't it be safer to kill farther from his cabin? Investigators believe Keyes broke into their home, abducted Will and Lorraine, and murdered them shortly thereafter. They stated it was a random crime and the couple was not targeted. Okay, a photo of Keyes is presented with this case summary. He's presently in jail in Alaska awaiting trial for the kidnap and murder of a teenage girl. After his arrest, he confessed to the Courier's murders and told police where to find their bodies. William worked as an animal care technician for the University of Vermont at the time of his disappearance, and Lorraine worked in the financial services department at Fletcher Allen Healthcare, the university's healthcare center. They have siblings living in Vermont, but no children. The Couriers haven't used their cell phones or bank accounts since they went missing, and all of their medication was left behind at home. Their bodies have not been located, but foul play is suspected in their case due to the circumstances involved. And again, so we don't have 100% definitive evidence, but the circumstantial evidence all lines up against Keyes, no doubt. So the third so-called confirmed victim is Deborah Feldman. Last seen in her home in Hackensack, New Jersey, April 8th, 2009. And again, in terms of 100% definitive confirmation, it's tough. Supposedly, Israel Keyes was looking up her name. He was searching her name on the internet many times. So, I mean, that's pretty damning. That's very, very damning, especially lining up his travel. I mean, it's obviously it's not 100% irrefutable proof, but it's in the realm of confirmed / semi-confirmed. Samantha Koenig, of course, that's 100% confirmed. And then Lorraine, Bill Courier, Deborah Feldman are relatively confirmed. There's no 100% damning evidence, but it really seems that it definitely could have been Israel Keyes. There's a strong case. It's a very, very strong case. Now, let's look at the info that the FBI gave regarding Keyes, what Keyes said about other potential victims. This was posted by Powerful Divide on the Unresolved Mysteries subreddit. A 98 victim. In 2012, Keyes told the FBI he had been two different people for 14 years. 98 would be the year he was referring to. Josh Hallmark made a strong case for the victim being Suzanne Lyle. So Suzanne Lyle missing from Albany, New York, March 3rd, 1998. Suzanne Gloria Lyle missing since March 2nd, 1998 from Albany, New York, classification endangered missing. She was 19 years old, 5'3", 165 to 175 pounds. Clothing, jewelry description, this is all from charlieproject.org. Ankle length, black trench coat, black shirt, jeans, possibly a polished 14-karat gold fluted bow ring, a frog-shaped silver ring with tiny diamonds, and a black cord necklace with a round silver disc medallion inscribed with a runic character that resembles the letter S. Carrying a black tote bag or backpack, photos of Lyle's jewelry are posted with this case summary. Distinguishing characteristics: Caucasian female, light brown hair, blue eyes. Lyle has a light brown colored birthmark on her left calf, surgical scar, left foot. She has a mole on her left cheek beneath her earlobe and a mole on each arm. Her nickname is Susie. Lyle is nearsighted and wears eyeglasses or contacts. Her ears are pierced. Details of disappearance: Lyle was a computer science student at State University of New York, SUNY, at Albany in 1998. She worked part-time at Babbage's Software in the Crossgates Mall in Guilderland, New York at the time. Lyle left work approximately 9:20 p.m., March 2nd, 98, and boarded a Capital District Transit Authority bus near the mall. She exited the bus at approximately 9:40 to 9:45 p.m. at the Collins Circle stop on the SUNY campus. She would normally call her boyfriend of 2 years once she had arrived back at her dorm, but he never heard from her that night. He kept trying to call her, but she never answered the phone. She has never been seen again, and there is no evidence that she ever arrived at her room. Her ATM card was used by an unidentified person March 3rd, 98, the day after her initial disappearance. The card was used at Stewart's store on the corner of Manning and Central in Albany, about 2.5 miles from the SUNY Albany campus. At approximately 4 p.m., someone used it to withdraw $20 from the cash machine. The person who used the card, whether Lyle or someone else, has never been identified, but they did type in the correct PIN number on the first try. Wow. And this does have shades of Israel Keys written all over it regarding Koenig. Lyle's work name tag was discovered in an area adjacent to the visitor's parking lot at SUNY 2 months after her disappearance. The tag was located approximately 30 yards from the Collins Circle bus stop. It isn't known if Lyle lost the tag the night she disappeared, but it did appear to have been exposed to the elements for a while. One of Lyle's co-workers told authorities she mentioned she was being stalked by an unidentified man before March 98. The co-worker stated that Lyle did not appear to be frightened of the person. It is not known if this incident is related to the case. And of course, there's a lot of young women out there who are stalked, unfortunately, and obviously that might not have anything to do with who killed her. Although, again, statistically, a female met with foul play, it's usually at the hands of someone known to her. But again, we're talking about an outlier in Israel Keys, and he has been known to get around. This sort of matches his MO and possible movements. Although Lyle's boyfriend claims he was playing games online with a friend at the time she went missing, and his friend supported his story, Lyle's parents feel he may have been involved in her case. They pointed out, though, although he lived only about 10 or 12 minutes away from the SUNY Albany campus, he never came to check on her when she didn't answer his calls the night she went missing. So what does that mean, though? Because, again, college-aged couple, we don't have a history here, but a lot of couples, they get into fights every other day, or even if rarely, not answering calls is kind of like again, we don't know their specific case. If she answered each and every call he ever gave, then it would seem that he should have ran over there. On the other hand, if she was just ignoring his calls and she had done that occasionally and or frequently, not necessarily a cause for alarm, especially if she's busy or whatever he was thinking. He called a bunch of times. If she didn't pick up, maybe he figured she was mad at him for something and didn't want to head over. Again, hard to tell. I mean, here's more info, though. According to Lyle's mother, her relationship with her boyfriend was unhealthy, and she had repeatedly tried to break up with him, only to agree to continue their relationship when he became upset. He has not been named as a suspect in the case, however. Okay, and again, we don't know him, so obviously we don't know. A brain fingerprint scan, of course, instead of a lie detector test, should be administered just to rule him out, because, of course, it is usually the boyfriend. Not that, again, we don't know what kind of guy he is. Is he more of the pathetic boyfriend, and she felt sorry for him, which is why she continued to see him instead of being afraid of him? Who knows? Another SUNY Albany student, Karen Wilson, disappeared in 1985, 13 years prior. Her disappearance remains unsolved. Authorities have not found a link between the two cases, but they stated the circumstances of the woman's disappearance were similar. Lyle's case remains unsolved. She was raised in Ballston Spa, New York. She is described as a quiet woman who enjoys expressing herself through poetry. She has been very interested in computers since she was a child and is an avid Rush fan. So this was posted October 12th, 2004, which is obviously kind of heartbreaking because she's still being described in the present, what she enjoys. Obviously, it's now 2021. Case not solved, but there are similarities to Israel Keys. It'd be difficult to rule him out definitively. Another possibility here, male-female couple were killed in Washington state between 2001 to 2005. It's unclear whether they were Washington state residents or were abducted from another state. Josh Hallmark strongly believes this couple to be Cami Vollendroff and Eugene Hyatt. Once again, we go to the Charlie Project and classified as lost/injured missing. Cami Luella Vollendroff, missing since November 21st, 2001, 16 years old, 5'7", 125 pounds. Caucasian female, brown hair, blue eyes, ears pierced, blonde streaks in her hair at the time of the disappearance. Cami and her boyfriend, Eugene Hyatt, were last seen at Boiler Bay State Park in Depot Bay, Oregon, November 21st, 2001. They were staying in an oceanfront condominium with Hyatt's grandparents. At 10 a.m., they left the condominium, telling Hyatt's grandparents that they had planned to look at the tide pools during the day. Neither Cami nor Hyatt has been heard from again. Authorities believe the couple was swept out to sea and drowned. A storm hit the area around the time they vanished, and it is thought that they were dragged into the water by a powerful wave. One of Hyatt's shoes was discovered near Boiler Bay Cove several days after they vanished. The cove is a rocky inlet and is located less than 1 mile from the couple's last known location inside the park. The couple's bodies were never found, however. Cammie and Hyatt resided in Staten, Oregon in 2001. So this is a curious one, too, because supposedly there's a plausible explanation here, because supposedly there was a storm hit at the time. Now, would that be a convenient time for a serial killer to go prowling? Because he knew that that could be a cover story. Supposedly there were clues given by Keyes to the FBI that leads some to believe that these are victims. 2 separate murders of victims that were taken from or killed in Washington between 2005 and 2006, disposing of at least one of the bodies in Lake Crescent. The FBI believes this victim that was submerged in Lake Crescent to be a female. One victim who was discovered and the cause of death was determined to be accidental. No further details. A white girl who drove a vintage car and had a wealthy grandmother. This was mentioned in an FBI news conference. It's not clear whether this victim is unique or one of his previous Washington victims. So I guess no further info there either. Stephen Michael Mason is a strong possibility for Keyes. He disappeared while camping in the Olympic National Forest in the area where one of Keyes' kill kits were found. And Josh Hallmark also discovered Mason worked at the very same VFW in Sequim, Washington, where Keyes was a member. That's a lot of connections there. On the Charlie Project lists Stephen Michael Mason missing from June 20th, 2006, lost/injured missing. From Sequim, Washington. Age 52, 5'7", 152 pounds, Caucasian male, gray hair, blue eyes. Mason's nickname is Mike. Some accounts spell his name with a V instead of a PH for Stephen. Details of disappearance. Mason was last seen June 20th, 2006. He and his wife were camping at Dungeness Forks U.S. Forest Service campground in the Olympic National Forest near Sequim, Washington, when they got into an argument and his wife left the campsite. Mason went to a friend's house the next day and asked the person to give his vehicle and his wife's purse back to her. The friend drove him back to the campground and left him there. He has never been heard from again. He wasn't reported missing until June 29th. A 2-day search of the forest turned up no sign of him, only a cache of food. Mason is an experienced camper and fisherman who knows the area well and had camped there for extended periods before. He was employed as a handyman at the Veteran of Foreign Wars post in Sequim at the time. His family believes he is deceased. Another individual made this post, sleuthing some. Regarding possible victims of Keyes, so is my old friend Delmar Sample. His car had been moved, Diet Mountain Dews bottles and cigars found around his vehicle. Del had just bought a new mountain bike and was never found, nor was Del. But Keyes was spotted on a bike and definitely at the same place at the same time, Olympic National Forest. It sucks because Dale was truly the salt of the earth type of person. To imagine he may very well have run into evil that day, it's heartbreaking. Israel has ruined so many lives. Tammy still isn't dating because of the trust issues he left her with. She's now a friend. His daughter lost her dad to suicide, and a year later, her only brother committed suicide as well. He was devastated by what Israel really was because he looked up to Israel as a father figure. We all get this one life to live as a gift. Imagine choosing to use your one life to destroy as many others as possible. I know Israel hated God and loved to debate God didn't exist in one breath, then spoke of hating God in the next. How can you hate something that isn't there? I believe Israel Keyes had a soul-shaking awakening before the God he loved to hate when he took his last breath. I mean, obviously, Keyes had some insane mental issues. Is it possible he also had a split personality? Because a lot of people who've dealt with serial killers, either they're that good at hiding or they truly have some kind of fractured personality. On the Charlie Project regarding this guy, Delmar Wayne Sample, missing since March 4, 2005, Centralia, Washington, classification endangered missing. So he was 52 at the time, 5'8", 180 pounds, Caucasian male, graying brown hair, hazel blue eyes. Sample's nickname is Del. He has a scar on his big toe and had previously fractured his left arm. Beard and mustache at time of disappearance. Sample was last seen at approximately 11 a.m. March 4, 2005, when he purchased fuel at a gas station in the vicinity of Interstate 5 and Harrison in Centralia, Washington. He had left his Onalaska, Washington home that same day to spend a long weekend in the wilderness. He has never been heard from again. His red and white 92 Ford R10 pickup truck was later found locked and abandoned at a roadside pullout on South Shore Road near Lake Quinault in Quinault, Washington. Sample's sleeping bag and food were inside the vehicle. There were no signs of foul play and no indication of his whereabouts. Sample had told people he planned to travel to Tillamook, Oregon. His truck was not found along that route, but his loved ones stated he frequently changed his travel plans on short notice. Authorities believe Sample may have had a 24-inch Red Mountain Fury Roadmaster mountain bicycle in his possession. A photograph of the bike is posted with this case summary. He had purchased it shortly before his disappearance, and it disappeared with him and has not been recovered. However, no bicycle tracks were found near his vehicle. Sample was employed as a pharmacist at a Walmart store in Chehalis, Washington. At the time of disappearance, he was reported missing by coworkers after he failed to arrive at work and did not call in with an explanation, which is uncharacteristic of him. Sample's loved ones stated he was not depressed at the time of his disappearance and had no reason to leave and not tell anyone, and it is uncharacteristic of him to leave without warning. His case remains unsolved. So again, another individual in Key's stomping ground proximity. So a couple other posts here. Nobody's ever going to know how many people he killed. Either he was telling the truth and there's no evidence left behind in a lot of his crimes, or he was lying just to expletive with us, no way to prove one way or another. So Josh Hallmark, this podcaster, suggested that Israel Keyes only admitted those victims that he was pretty certain the FBI could link him to for whatever reason. Israel Keyes wanted to control information because he wanted the death penalty as soon as possible. When other missing people all over the country started to be linked to him, he knew he'd spend the rest of his life in a box. He killed himself shortly after something was found in Hunters, Washington, that he hadn't given up. Law enforcement was beginning to see some patterns, and he likely knew they could keep going. An interesting assessment of Israel Keyes here by EDS Kush Queen. There's no doubt in my mind that Israel Keyes did in fact have additional victims, and he made damn sure that no one would ever know how many people he killed. Regardless of whether he was lying or telling the truth while in police custody, he was running the show when they stepped into that room. From the moment he demanded his terms and required an Americano, a Snickers, and a cigar, everyone else knew that too. I don't care about mistakes he made, impulses he shouldn't have acted upon, or evidence he left behind that's fueled the analysis of whether or not he was meticulous. Everything that he said and did throughout those interviews were part of his last egotistical, enigmatic, carefully crafted and convincing performance. We all know how good he was at putting on an act. He even said it was entertainment to him. He told the truth, he told some lies, but he was so deceptive and vague that the evil genius ultimately played the expletive out of the FBI and beat them at their own game on their own turf. He definitely did some lying just to expletive with them because his obsession was control. The relaxed tone and quick response of 14 years was too honest and natural. That's probably the most honest thing he ever said. But when it comes to lying versus honesty, I 100% believe that he was always holding back, leaving out information, not telling the whole truth, mixing some truth, lies, fantasies, and ambiguity together just to expletive with them. I don't even think he got beyond the tip of the iceberg. He told investigators just enough to barter the death penalty. He said as little as possible. He never fully answered a question. He took advantage of the interrogation tactics that are used every day to secure false confessions. There are so many instances where he would go quiet, deep in thought, have visceral reactions, and or say that he didn't want to talk about certain questions. Canadians don't count? It depends on how you're qualifying victims. He never explained how he qualified victims. I think he has raped and murdered multiple people in multiple countries, both before and during his time in the army. Those crimes happen on base all the time, and people tend to look the other way. Less than a dozen, my ass. There are likely dozens. But he didn't want his daughter to know. And he knew that she would learn the truth one day, one way or another, but all he could do was hope that she could have a good childhood. Wouldn't it make sense that when she eventually did learn the truth as an adult, he would want there to be as little information as possible? If and when he lied about his number of victims, I think he aimed for less to be on the record, not more. Some more interesting comments here. This one's by Invisible Chain. People give Israel Keys way too much credit as some kind of criminal mastermind. He got caught in just about the dumbest way possible, and his attempted ransom plot was half-baked at best. He made a bunch of claims to police that have never been corroborated, and for some reason, people take him at his word. He was too stupid to have gotten away with much more than the crimes already linked to him. A response here by EV68. He reminds me of Ted Bundy in the sense that people hang on everything Ted said to be fact, like serial killers having a ritual, victim type, estimates of active serial killers, etc., when we're really just talking about two douches who love to hear themselves talk. Kind of hard to argue with that. Another great post here by Pembroke Love. I'm more than a little bewildered as to why people, including the FBI, take his word for it. I asked in some group whether he could be a suspect for Lindsey Baum, and people literally told me no because he didn't kill any minors. Did he just say it, or did he double no take back pinky swear? Okay. And supposedly he said after the birth of his daughter, he changed his opinion of murdering children. What the heck? A few more posts here that kind of counter-argument some of these points. Eldritch Goat Gangsta. I half agree with you. Keys definitely wasn't as smart or as careful as he thought he was, but he was quite prolific. And what makes this scary is that he really only took some very basic precautions, and in many cases didn't even do that. He left the couriers where he killed them and even made reference himself to burying bodies in shallow graves in other cases, and he still went completely under the radar for over a decade. And again, that's if we're taking his word for it, though. It really highlights to me how so many criminals get away with what they do with pure dumb luck, and how a tiny bit of restraint and taking basic precautions can really amplify the effect of said dumb luck. Excellent points there, excellent points. Another response here by Colette. People always say that Keys could not have been some evil genius based on the idiocy he got caught for. I agree, but I think people ignore how much an individual can get away with when a crime is random, spread out across the country, and without a clear MO. You do not have to be particularly clever to get away with what Keys did. I think that's the most frightening aspect of his crimes. Another post here, Bitchabella. I tend to agree mostly, but the one thing that gives me pause is the bank robberies. Pulling that off arguably requires a certain degree of organization and cunning, and that's a great point too, especially in rapid succession off of murders, because he's committing these bank robberies and murders in such a short time. I mean, that's curious. Here's a post from an astute Israel Keys researcher, Loco Mule. So he was all over the frickin' country and beyond. Some places he landed in and flew out the next day. Others he flew to, rented a car, then drove thousands of miles to the next locale, which leaves us largely unable to account for vast swaths of miles in between. I left off after going through many hours of his interrogation interviews and gathered a few tidbits. He was smart. I'm not sure how smart. He didn't necessarily seem like genius material. However, I would imagine that most people who met him would call him very smart. He did not want fame or infamy, quite the opposite. Out of no telling how many hours of footage I watched, almost all of it was him trying to broker some bizarre deal where he would share the details of more of his crimes in exchange for keeping certain details, such as sexual abuse, posing bodies, etc., hidden from the public. He specifically mentioned repeatedly not wanting his family and especially his daughter to hear details in open court. It would require a notated epic deep dive, but from that I gathered the police initially kind of went Sure, let's have those details. But Keyes kept holding out for proof of the deal. The media jumped on any and all details of the crime he'd just been caught for, which he took as a sign the deal was fake. The police began slowly hinting around that they couldn't really offer a blanket blackout sort of agreement, and this completely deflated Keyes. He discussed how details of more crimes were the only currency he had left with, which to bargain for his future. No deal meant his currency was valueless, and he was stripped of all bargaining power and doomed to be revealed to his family. That was why he'd revealed his methodology, his kill kit locations, and tied them to known murders to prove that he wasn't lying to create fake bargaining chips. Once all that was stripped away, he killed himself. There was something wrong with his brain. Yeah, I know he was a killer, a monster, but I mean something specific. I say this because the person with the mental acuity to use a successful construction company in tandem with bank robberies to execute perfect crimes is completely at odds with the guy who completely abandoned his working how to be a serial killer plan to commit stupid crimes and then thought he could somehow hide the sordid details of his murders from prying eyes. It's like the rational and the irrational met head on somewhere within his mind. People commonly speculated that he wanted to get caught because of this dichotomy, which doesn't really seem to jive with his horror that certain people would discover certain details. I wonder if there could have been an event involving physical and or emotional trauma preceding his last murder that kicked Keyes' mental state from one to the other. That's actually a really good post there for a lot of different reasons, and it seems to be quite an astute observation of Israel Keyes and how he ticks. Another poster, Decker87, stated this: he was an alcoholic and his drinking got progressively worse. That's why I think he stopped taking the precautions he had previously. I think on some level he simply didn't care anymore. And so I won't call it sloppiness, but though I hesitate to say he wanted to be caught, I think the challenge of evading justice was dead for him. He knew he could do it, and so he stopped caring. Kinda how a time-served construction guy may get slowly negligent for health safety issues over many years, he simply lost respect for law enforcement coupled with his alcoholism. Like, why do I even need to bother? These chumps haven't caught me yet. That is an even more astute observation, because I was actually kind of thinking something along those lines, where something happened, he either didn't care anymore, or he wanted to get caught in the sense that he was almost bored, not that he wasn't capable of continuing to elude justice. And the comparison to the construction guy, or in many other professions, where even, let's say, the restaurant industry, I've heard a few horror stories as well. When people first open up a restaurant, I mean, they're meticulous. They have to check every box. They're obsessed about the health inspector finding something. And then after years and years, they learn how to cut corners to not get caught or cited. And the standards drop. I mean, how many people in any profession truly maintain standards? So is this what happened to Israel Keyes? Some people throw out James Lamar Tidwell Jr. as a possible victim in Texas. People kind of note that Keyes doesn't have confirmed victims in Texas. This guy disappeared February 15th, 2012 from Mount Enterprise, Texas, classification endangered missing. He was 58 years old at the time, 5'3", 375 pounds, tan work shirt, blue jeans, Caucasian male, gray hair, green eyes. Tidwell's nickname is Jimmy. He wears eyeglasses, but those were left behind. Tidwell was last seen in Mount Enterprise, Texas, February 15th, 2012. His boss last saw him as 5:30 a.m. that day after he finished working the night shift. He had been working for an electrical company in Longview, Texas for about 10 years, and he and his wife lived in a cabin they were building on a 10-acre plot in Mount Enterprise. Tidwell was supposed to come back to work in the afternoon to do some overtime, but he never showed up. When his boss called his house and spoke to his wife, she said he was asleep and refused to wake him. On February 20th, Tidwell's boss became concerned about his uncharacteristic absence from work and asked police to do a welfare check, but no one was able to find him. February 28th, the authorities tried again and still couldn't find Tidwell, and his boss filed a missing persons report. His wife gave inconsistent statements as to when or where she last saw him. That's weird. His wife didn't even file the missing persons report. February 29th, Tidwell's white 79 Ford F-100 pickup truck was found abandoned intersection of 95 and State Highway 315, 5 miles from his home. Photo of the truck is posted with his case summary. It has been parked at the roadside for at least a day and possibly since the day his boss last saw him. His glasses were lying on the seat of the truck, but his cell phone, wallet, and keys were missing. There was no sign of him at the scene. Tidwell's sister does not believe her brother left of his own accord. She thinks foul play was involved in his disappearance. His case remains unsolved. So, yeah, his wife, curious there, doesn't file a missing person, supposedly inconsistent reports. I don't know what to make of that. For some reason, some people are connecting this case to Israel Keys. Another interesting post here by user since deleted. Israel Keys was sophisticated with his murders, but like many serial killers, he got sloppy near the end. I think he took the tactics he learned in the military and adapted them to his career as a serial killer. BTK would imagine he was a spy when committing his crimes, and I can see Israel Keys doing something similar. I think he got off on the planning and staging more than the rape or murder itself. His success as a burglar and bank robber points to this. The fact he said he fudged with the crime scenes to make them look like accidents sound about right. Wouldn't be surprised if he planted DNA at crime scenes and possibly sent people to prison for his crimes. That's an excellent point right there. Because that's something people don't really consider. But how many innocent people are in prison? Many. Too many. I mean, obviously one is too many, but there's a lot more than one. And so that is, yeah, it's really scary to think about that. Also, in 2013, a woman who works as an attorney for the U.S. State Department told the FBI she had a disturbing encounter with Israel Keys in a Marshall's parking lot in Albany, New York, sometime in 1998. The man appeared to be in his late teens or early 20s and was intently watching her place items into a car before he approached her. Interestingly, the encounter took place across the street from the Albany recruitment office, which Keys would later join the Army through. The Marshall store is also just 2 miles from the SUNY campus, where Suzanne Lyall was abducted from. Wow. That actually makes it a lot more likely. We didn't have that tidbit before that the Suzanne Lyall case that I went over earlier is connected to Keys. It's right in the same area. Wow, that is troublesome. Now, regarding the Cami Volendroff Eugene Hyatt disappearance from the state park in Depew Bay, Oregon, where authorities thought they washed out to sea, certain Keys comments in his interviews, he said he was surprised that some of his victims' disappearances were dismissed as accidental and are nowhere close to what actually happened. Is he referring to Volendroff and Hyatt here? Also, according to the FBI case files Josh Hallmark obtained, the FBI spent a significant amount of time and resources investigating Sample, Delmar Wayne Sample, who we also went over, as a possible victim. There is a dark spot in Israel's timeline from March 2nd through March 8th. Additionally, Keys also went canoeing on Lake Quinault on March 1st, 2005, where Sample's vehicle was found abandoned. I mean, the evidence keeps stacking up here. I mean, we're moving into clear circumstantial, possibly tiny bit beyond circumstantial here. All right, someone who we did not go over yet. Actually, first let's go over James Lamar Tidwell from Mount Enterprise, Texas, which I just mentioned earlier. So Keys hired a rental car from a Houston car agency. February 12th, had the vehicle until February 18th with 2,847 miles logged. So during February 2012, Keys admitted to traveling through the cities of Azle, Aledo, and Cleburne, Texas during February 2012. During this trip, Keys staked out cemeteries and sheds where he could take somebody to rape and murder them. In Glen Rose, Texas, he staked out a victim at a riverside park who was walking her dog. Israel staked out and burned an abandoned house in Aledo, Texas. So this guy's also doing arsons too, not just the bank robberies and the murders. Keyes robbed a bank in Azle, Texas, wearing a construction helmet and a beard made out of human hair. Investigators suspect Keyes' rental vehicle became stuck in a muddy rural area, possibly near Cleburne, Texas. So here's where it gets a little crazy. James Lamar Tidwell was last seen Mount Enterprise, Texas, February 15th. He and his wife lived in a cabin in Mount Enterprise at the time. A Walmart receipt places Keyes in Jacksonville, Texas at 11:25 a.m. February 17th. Jacksonville is 30 miles from Mount Enterprise. His receipt recorded a $15 transaction of a shovel, air freshener spray, and lube. Also, one thing that disappeared along with James Tidwell was his construction helmet, which he wore for work. It just so happens that the very next day, Keyes is on video robbing a bank wearing a construction helmet. Is this him poking fun at authorities like it's too easy to get away with this? I'm going to wear the construction helmet of the guy I just murdered to rob a bank. I mean, this is all quite mind-shocking. I mean, I don't know what to make of this. This guy is clearly one disturbed individual. I mean, several orders of magnitude more disturbed than other killers. Now, regarding Stephen Michael Mason, who we also went over, regarding the guy who got into an argument with his wife, there are several factors. So again, from Unresolved Mysteries, there are several factors that make Stephen a likely Keyes victim. Stephen disappeared less than a mile from where Keyes was known to go shooting. Law enforcement also discovered one of Keyes' kill kits in the area where Mason disappeared. Even more interestingly, Mike was a handyman at the VFW in Sequim, Washington, where Keyes was a member. Keyes was posted to the very same VFW where Stephen Mason worked. So these are a lot of coincidences that make some of these cases quite likely. So regarding Keyes' boat, April 9, 2005, Keyes picked up a boat he purchased in Port Angeles, Washington. Keyes admitted to killing several people in Washington state between getting his boat and moving to Alaska, with one of those victims being submerged in Lake Crescent. Keyes hinted to the FBI it was a woman. According to friends and family, as well as Keyes himself, he began reupholstering the boat after the weeks he bought it. A search of the boat by the FBI discovered blood evidence and bones beneath the upholstery, indicating somebody was killed on that boat prior to Keyes reupholstering it. This means that somebody was likely murdered on that boat between April 10th and May 1st. Josh Hallmark found only one unsolved disappearance that occurred within 500 miles of Nia Bay in the 3 weeks following the purchase of the boat. Wendy Marie DeHoop, who disappeared from Eugene, Oregon, April 22, 2005. It's worth noting Wendy is of the same ethnic background as Keyes' girlfriend, Tammy. Wendy is also Black and Native American. And a lot of these details come from Josh Hallmark's podcast, True Crime BS. So Wendy Marie DeHoop's listing here on Charlie Project, missing from April 22nd, 2005, Eugene, Oregon. Classification: endangered, missing, biracial, Black, Hispanic, Native American, white. 44 years old. 5'6", 145 to 155 pounds. Black pinstripe pants, suit jacket, possibly a silver band with a diamond cut design on her left ring finger. Distinguishing characteristics: multiracial female, black hair, brown eyes. DeHoop is of African American, Caucasian, Hispanic, and Native American Cherokee descent. She wears contact lenses. She has a pierced navel, wears a barbell in the piercing. Her ears are also pierced. DeHoop has small circular marks on her mid to lower back and a scar on her lower abdomen. She may use the last name Williams Hook or the nickname Nada, or Nada, N-A-D-A. Details of disappearance: DeHoop was last seen at approximately 7 a.m., April 22nd, 2005, when she dropped her husband off at work at the Home Depot in the vicinity of the 1000 block of Green Acres Road in Eugene, Oregon. She was scheduled to drive to Halsey, Oregon for her own job at the Georgia Pacific, but never arrived. She has never been heard from again. Her boss and boyfriend reported her missing. 6 days after DeHoop's disappearance, someone found her purse and dropped it off at a Buy Mart in Eugene. He said he found it while walking his dog. The wallet was missing. On May 10th, 10 days after DeHoop's disappearance, the same person who found her purse led authorities to her white two-door 1990 Toyota Corolla SR5 with the Oregon license plate YCH635. It was on Lorain Highway just east of Fillmore Street in South Eugene. There is no sign of DeHoop at the scene. Her case remains unsolved. I'm sure they must have checked out the person who was walking his dog that found the purse and the car. So another individual we didn't talk about was, of course, Lauren Spierer. Keys can be placed in Bloomington, Indiana, before Lauren's abduction. In December 2007, he and his girlfriend Kristen took a trip to visit his mother in Harlan, Indiana. Keys rented a car in Fort Wayne, Indiana through December 8th to December 10th and racked up 547 miles on it. On the very morning of Lauren's disappearance, Israel Keys passed through 3 tolls on the Indiana Toll Road, which crosses northern Indiana. According to sources close to the investigation, when the FBI showed Keys a photo of Lauren, he got visibly upset, denied involvement, and continued to veer the conversation away from Lauren Spierer. The only time he had this reaction was when he was shown the photo of Deborah Feldman. That is curious. Now, Lauren Spierer's case, there's a bit of info on. So, she disappeared June 3rd, 2011, age 20. This is straight from Wiki. American woman who disappeared June 30th, 2011, following an evening at Kilroy's Sports Bar in Bloomington, Indiana. At the time, Spierer was a 20-year-old student at Indiana University. Though her disappearance generated national press coverage, Spierer is presumed dead and her case remains unsolved. Now, the mere fact that she went missing from a bar is just, that opens the door to a lot of potential individuals who could have harmed her. Whereas, I don't know how many other individuals are alleged to have gone missing from a bar that Israel Keys abducted and killed. But again, if we're going to take at face value this reaction, I mean, I don't know. We have to, of course, explore the possibility. Lauren Spierer was born January 17th, 1991, to Charlene and Robert Spierer. Her father was an accountant. She grew up in Scarsdale, New York, an affluent town in lower Westchester County. Spierer graduated from Edgemont High School in 2009 and enrolled at Indiana University, where she was studying textiles merchandising. Spierer was active in the Jewish community at IU and had spent the previous spring break planting trees in Israel on behalf of the Jewish National Fund. Spierer met her boyfriend Jesse Wolf and her friend Jay Rosenbaum years earlier at Camp Towanda, a summer camp in the mountain town of Honesdale, Pennsylvania. It was there she also met various other future IU students who later became Spierer's circle of friends when she enrolled at IU in 2009. On the night she disappeared, Spierer was drinking with several friends. Wolf stated he did not go out with Spierer or her friends that evening, texting back and forth with Spierer before he went to bed. According to witnesses, Spierer was very intoxicated. Bloomingdale police used video surveillance footage and witness statements to create a timeline of her whereabouts before her disappearance. Timestamps, okay. Friday, June 3rd, 2011, 12:30 a.m., witnesses report Spierer left her apartment with a friend named David Ron. The pair went to Jay Rosenbaum's apartment, and she met up with Corey Rossman, Rosenbaum's neighbor. 1:46 a.m., Spierer is seen entering Kilroy's Sports Bar. 2:27 a.m., Spierer is seen exiting the bar with Rossman. Spierer left her cell phone and her shoes at the bar. She had taken off her shoes when she walked out onto the sand-covered patio. Rossman walked with Spierer to her apartment complex. 2:30 a.m., Spierer is seen entering Smallwood Plaza Apartments, where her residence is located. A passerby named Zach Oates noticed her level of inebriation and asked if she was okay. 2:48 a.m. After she left the apartments, Spierer entered an alley that runs between College Ave and Morton Street. Security cameras mounted on nearby apartments show her exit the alley at 2:51 a.m. and walk toward an empty lot. Spierer's keys and purse were found along this route through the alley. Spierer and Rossman arrived at Rossman's apartment shortly afterward. Michael Beth, Rossman's roommate, was at the apartment. Rossman himself was very intoxicated and stumbling. He vomited on the carpet on the way upstairs. Beth stated that he escorted Rossman to bed. He then tried to persuade Spierer to sleep over for her own safety. He claimed Spierer said she wanted to return to her own apartment. 3:30 a.m. Beth said he phoned his neighbor Rosenbaum wanting him to take care of Spierer. Beth said that Spierer was attempting to get Beth to drink with her at her own apartment. She eventually went to Rosenbaum's apartment, where he observed a bruise under her eye, presumably sustained in a fall earlier that evening. She told him she didn't know how she got the bruise. I mean, this is all shaping up to possibly not having anything to do with Israel Keys. 2 calls were placed from Rosenbaum's phone shortly before she is reported to have left. Rosenbaum said Spierer placed both calls, one to Ron and one to another friend. Neither picked up, and no messages were left. 4:30 a.m. Rosenbaum reports that Spierer left the apartment. This is the last reported sighting of her. He reported last seeing Spierer at the intersection of 11th and College Ave, heading south on College. She was last seen barefoot, wearing black leggings and a white shirt. Several hours later that morning, Wolf sent Spierer a text. He received a reply from an employee at the bar. Wolf reported Spierer missing. So there's no security cameras in the area, so again, we have to take Rosenbaum's word that Spierer left the apartment at 4:30, right? Investigation, August 2011, police conducted a 9-day search of the Sycamore Ridge landfill in Pimento, south of Terre Haute, for clues in the disappearance. The landfill is where trash from Bloomington is hauled after a stop at a transfer station. The Bloomington Police Department, the Indiana University Police Department, and the FBI took part in the search. As of May 24th, 2013, investigators had received 3,060 tips on Spierer's disappearance, 100 of them received during the first half of 2013. And of course, she went missing June 3rd, 2011. Okay. April 2015, Bloomington police announced they were investigating a possible link in between Spierer's disappearance and the murder of another IU student, Hannah Wilson. Wilson went missing April 24th, 2015, after visiting Kilroy's, the same bar that Spierer visited the night she disappeared. Wilson was last seen getting into a taxi in front of the bar and driving away. Her body was found the next morning in Brown County. A local man named Daniel Messel was arrested for the murder after his cell phone was discovered near her body. In July 2015, Dietl concluded that the 2 cases are unrelated and any similarities between the 2 cases were coincidental. On January 28, 2016, the FBI and other police agencies investigated a property in the 2900 block of Old Morgantown Road in Martinsville, approximately 20 miles north of Bloomington. According to a statement released by the FBI, investigators were following up on leads and tips in Morgan County regarding the disappearance of Lauren Spierer. The property was connected to a man, Justin Wagers, who resided there with his mother and stepfather. Wagers was suspected of exposing himself to numerous local women. Investigators searched the property with cadaver dogs, which indicated potential evidence. Anthropologists conducted a dug and sifted dirt from where the cadaver dogs hit, but found nothing. Investigators also towed a white truck from the property belonging to Wagers. Theories. A number of theories have emerged in reference to what happened to Spierer that evening. Spierer's parents have stated that they believe their daughter is dead. Based on her level of intoxication, they also felt she may have been drugged while at the bar. We felt somebody could have slipped something into her drink at the Kilroys, said Robert Spierer. The family has voiced suspicions that the men she was with that evening, as well as Wolf, since they refused to take police-issued polygraphs and retained lawyers soon after Spierer's disappearance. Again, it's weird. I mean, everybody kind of retains lawyers these days. It's the smart thing to do with so many innocent people going to prison. See, the thing is, they should do brain fingerprint scans, because that's not as so as of today, I believe, unless someone has found evidence, there's $100,000 or $150,000 reward for beating the brain fingerprint scan. It simply recognizes familiar responses in the brain, so it has nothing to do. It's irrelevant whether the subject is attempting to deceive or not. The brainwave pattern either recognizes information or does not. So whether they're trying to be truthful or not is taken out of the equation. Brain, fingerprint, scan. I don't know why this is not mainstream by now. It's used in the military and upper agencies in the government. I discussed it at length in the Stephen Avery case series. If you haven't checked that out, check that out. But again, all these guys getting, again, statistically, a woman being harmed is usually harmed by either the person that last saw her or was witnessed with. Obviously, if she left and went somewhere else, the person who harmed her would be the last person who actually, they would know, someone else wouldn't know. But it's usually the last person even known to others to be with her, or someone known to her, usually the boyfriend, significant other. So these are all potential guilty parties. Although Wolf, apparently, he wasn't with them that night. So is it possible he's not involved? She gets a black eye at some point during the night. That's highly suspicious. And how tragic, I mean, not that it would be any more tragic, but I mean, it's tragic no matter how you look at it. But what if she really left the apartment and got picked up by someone like Israel Keys? I mean, that's as bad of a night as you can have. I mean, it's crazy. While the parents have not made any specific accusation, they do believe the two more know more than they have told the police. The men responded they have taken privately administered polygraphs, as well as one from the FBI. They do not trust the Bloomington police, they say. They have retained lawyers. So if they did take, this is curious. So apparently a white truck was seen by security cameras, but later identified and supposedly determined there was no connection to the investigation. So if these guys did take FBI administered polygraphs and the FBI cleared them in some capacity, that would be curious to know. So continuing on here, accidental overdose is a theory regarding Spieer's level of intoxication. Her friends and Wolf told police that she used drugs in addition to alcohol on the night leading up to her disappearance. Wolf's mother alleged that Spierer was asked to leave the summer camp where she met her son in Rosenbaum years earlier because of drug use. This poor little girl is not with us today because of her drug abuse, she said. This is Wolf's mother. The boyfriend's mother. On September 2nd, 2010, 9 months before her disappearance, Spierer was arrested on charges of public intoxication and illegal consumption. After her disappearance, police found a small amount of cocaine in her room. Although theoretically that could have been planted, right? Rosenbaum told investigators that Spierer consumed alcohol, snorted cocaine, and crushed up Klonopin tablets that evening. Her rare heart condition, long QT syndrome, added to the danger of drug use. Police addressed rumors that implied Spierer may have overdosed, and those with her may have hidden her body to avoid criminal charges. Bo Didel, a private eye hired by the Spierer family, doubts that a fatal drug overdose would be enough to motivate some to hide her death. He cited the prevalence of drug abuse on the IU campus. Every kid's buying pot, cocaine, drinking pills, he said. I mean, it's all over the place. Every kid, every single one. So that really can't be the motive behind it. I mean, it could be. I mean, people panic in different ways, especially drunken bastards. Stranger abduction. The police have also acknowledged they have not ruled out other possibilities, such as abduction by stranger. Spierer's parents have previously stated they do not believe her disappearance was a random abduction. I mean, they must be that suspicious of these guys, then. Daniel Messel. In 2017, Brown County prosecutor Ted Adams reported he believed Daniel Messel could be connected to Spierer's disappearance. In 2016, Messel was convicted of killing another IU student, Hannah Wilson. In 2015, Wilson had only been reported missing for 1 day when her body was found in a desolate field. She had been bludgeoned to death. Messel's cell phone was discovered at her feet. Messel has never been charged in connection with Spierer's case. Civil lawsuits. Spierer's parents filed civil lawsuits against Rossman, Rosenbaum, and Beth for their involvement with their daughter leading up to her disappearance. So, Rossman is Rosenbaum's neighbor. So she left her apartment with a friend named David Ron. So we have David Ron. They went to Jay Rosenbaum's. Corey Rossman is Jay Rosenbaum's neighbor. Michael Beth is Rossman's roommate. So, Jay Rosenbaum, Rossman, and Michael Beth are roommates. Okay. Wow. So Spiere's parents filed civil lawsuits against Rossman, Rosenbaum, and Beth for their involvement with their daughter leading up to the disappearance. The suit accuses the defendants of negligence, either alleging they supplied Spierer with alcohol after she was already visibly intoxicated, then neglected to assure she returned safely to her apartment, which likely led to her death. The family stated they hoped the lawsuit would lead to the defendants admitting more information about what occurred the night of Spiere's disappearance. I truly don't think it was a random abduction. I think that somebody that Lauren knew was responsible for the events of that evening, Spiere's mother said. As part of the suit, they subpoenaed private cell phone and academic records spanning 134 days before and after the night disappeared, a move the defendant's lawyer labeled a fishing expedition. In 2013, federal judge Tanya Walton Pratt dismissed the suit against Beth after determining he had no duty of care for Spierer. Maybe no legal duty, perhaps a moral obligation of some kind. In 2014, Pratt dismissed the suit against the other two men, finding there could be any number of theories as to what happened to Lauren and what, if any, injuries she may have sustained. Without evidence to prove these theories, it would be impossible for a jury to determine if whatever happened to Spierer was a natural and probable consequence of her intoxication, without any other intervening acts that would break the causal chain. Spierer's parents appealed the ruling. However, in 2015, a federal appeals court later upheld the dismissal of the parents' lawsuits. Lawyers for the men have stated that their clients have cooperated fully with police and that the PIs hired by the Spierer family and that all of them passed private polygraphs. They've been interviewed, and to say they've been less than forthcoming is just not accurate, said Chapman, who represents Beth and Ron. To date, none of the defendants have been named as suspects in Spierer's disappearance. Curious. I mean, this is curious. So there doesn't really seem to be a solid connection to Keyes here, other than he may have possibly been in the general area. So there are a couple more little details here. So the 2:30 a.m. altercation with Zach Oakes, who noticed her level of intoxication, asked if she was okay. Rossman answered him, "She's okay, I got it." Oakes stated that he told Rossman to take her back to her room. Rossman cursed at Oakes, which led to an altercation in which Oakes punched him, knocking him to the floor. Rossman claimed that this blow caused him to lose his memory of the evening. So that's kind of weird. So he didn't let her answer, or she was incapable of answering due to her state of intoxication. And then Oakes punches Rossman, if this is true. Wow. Okay, so 2:42 a.m., they exit the apartment complex. Police reported that Spierer did not go to her fifth-floor apartment during this short visit. So they went back to her apartment complex, but she didn't go inside. Surveillance video shows Spierer stumbling and Rossman helping her to her feet and then walking her out of the building. A few minutes later, she is witnessed by a bystander sitting on a staircase and falling backwards, hitting her head on the concrete step. The noise of the impact was loud enough for the bystander to hear it and asked whether she was all right. According to the woman, Rossman replied, "She's okay. I'll take care of it." After they continued up the street, she is witnessed falling again. Because of her intoxication level, she didn't raise her hands to cushion the blow, and her face hit the ground unguarded. A few steps later, she fell a third time. At this point, Rossman began carrying Spierer. So it is possible they didn't hit her, because if all these witnesses are saying she fell all over the place, but so they're carrying her to a different apartment. Why didn't he just carry her to her apartment? I mean, this is weird. So Michael Beth apparently is the one who said that Rossman was so intoxicated he vomited on the carpet on the way upstairs. So 4:30 a.m. is when Rosenbaum reports that she left the apartment. This is the last reported sighting. This is kind of messed up, though. Well, then again, if they're all drunk, how are you gonna? If you witness somebody stumbling that much, you're gonna let them walk home alone? A post here. This is one of the first cases I followed on Web Sleuths. Her male friends know what happened. Whether it was accidental or calculated, she was so small and had a heart condition, and from the evidence looked like she could barely stand up that night. I also have a hard time. So apparently this last sighting, Rosenbaum said he saw her at the intersection of 11th and College as she was walking away herself by herself, magically sober and able to walk at this time. We have to take his word for it. That's always an issue. Now the other thing is, why would these friends cover for each other? Unless they all assaulted her and they were all guilty, but that's, I mean, I don't know. That's Or they thought each other were blamed if she did collapse and die. They thought they would all be guilty, so they all covered for each other. So, another post from user since deleted. From knowing people very well related to her at Indiana University, I have always heard she died due to an overdose, and the evidence was hidden by her shady male friends who were high-level drug dealers on campus. Another poster said, that's what I've heard, and it seems to fit with the evidence. The head injury worries me too. It's very easy to die of one of those. Is the drug dealer angle pretty solid or just a rumor? So another poster here, I've got two theories. The first is that her friends, in quotations, found her dead from some type of alcohol poisoning or drug overdose, panicked, and hid her instead of calling the police, possibly because they supplied her with the drugs and alcohol and were afraid they would be charged as accessories in her death. The second is that her friends, in quotations, found her passed out and perhaps gang raped her, then panicked and killed her to cover up what they did. I'm 99% sure that her friends know what happened. This is nothing random. If they were dealers, or some of them were dealers, and they did supply her, or possibly, I mean, yeah, if they were her suppliers, that would give them good motive, yeah. Another poster here. This is third-hand knowledge at this point, so take it with a grain of salt. But a friend's aunt knows someone from the Bloomingtown Police Department, and she said that they basically think that's what happened and aren't pursuing any other leads regarding the overdose. Another poster said, in my opinion, she had a medical event related to her partying that night. The boys panicked and disposed of her body. I can't believe she hasn't been found or one of them hasn't cracked by now. I mean, if we assume just for a moment that these individuals around her are either dealers or have nefarious purposes, we really can't take any of their words on faith. So did one of them, if she was slipped something at the bar, and then one of these guys is taking her back to her apartment, he's going to claim she wants to go back to his apartment to drink. But if she's that out of it, she's not going to want to do anything. And then she can't walk. He's trying to guide her, and she, I guess, trusted him to a certain extent that he would guide her home. And instead, he picked her up and carried her away because she couldn't walk herself after falling down so many times. I don't know. This one's tough, but again, can we 100% rule out the possibility that somebody seeing a drunk girl around a campus who could barely walk straight wouldn't drive by and pull her into a vehicle? I mean, there are a lot of scumbags out there. I mean, I don't know if we could completely rule that out, but again, just going by FBI statistics, it would be somebody known to her. Other people speculate that it may not have been those guys, but that she went into another apartment to continue to party and was possibly OD'd or hurt in another apartment. I don't know how likely it is, but if there's a lot of college students partying, doors are open, people are coming and going. If these guys are basically done partying, would she continue to party elsewhere? I don't know how likely that is, but again, just another one of these theories. But it does seem, I mean, why would the guy lie about seeing her on the street, though? So he must have been involved. Or, I don't know, some people think she did make it back to her own building, and then someone in her building could have harmed her, but then there would have been footage of that. So apparently the building where these guys lived There was a surveillance system, but it wasn't hooked up yet. So that's another one of these coincidences. Would that imply maybe that someone knew that there were no recording tapes around the building? Another post here, you don't need to be a criminal mastermind, regarding some saying that it's not easy to hide a body, because especially if they're drunk kids. So the post here, you don't need to be a criminal mastermind. All you need is luck and to not talk to police. Them keeping their mouths shut and one person dumping the body far away from campus without police being able to obtain search warrants on their vehicles is what allowed for this crime to go unresolved. I would think they would have looked at all surveillance footage, so if their vehicles would have been seen with who driving, obviously, even if one of them was driving somewhere far, if they don't know what's in the vehicle. But apparently, if this is true, they got no search warrants. None of the vehicles were searched. So is it possible they would have found evidence of her body in the car if they had searched the car, but they weren't able to? So again, tragic either way. Apparently, also someone else commented, within 2 to 3 days of the disappearance, one of the earliest anonymous tips was to search Lake Monroe, which is one of the largest bodies of water in Indiana. But apparently, and it was credible enough for the police to search, but apparently nothing was found. But again, it is a gigantic body of water. So apparently, also some more details. Apparently, it was the boyfriend's friend who punched Corey. So, okay, so this a jealous boyfriend who didn't want to go out, so he was home studying and was going to go to sleep early. Then he gets a call from somebody stating that his girlfriend is out partying with a bunch of other guys. So he has his friend see what's up. Did his friend prevent her from getting into her room and punched Corey? And then that's why Corey took her to his place, because he didn't want to get into the altercation with this guy? Because who knows who would... That's weird. And this is a really crazy post here from Amy Tentacle. The boyfriend has no alibi all night, and his friends punched Corey and prevented Lauren and Corey from getting into her apartment. I think it's a jealous boyfriend confrontation. He was driving around in the morning, first to get her phone, first to get into her room, first to report missing, and his dad was in town even before Lauren's parents. After she made it to Rosenbaum's house sick and passing out, it makes sense for him to call her long-term boyfriend. In later years, the boyfriend and Rosenbaum became business partners. Wow, if that's true, is that curious? Or is it because of the bond they shared that they're both innocent of any wrongdoing, but they shared a particular bond because they could never find this out? Or is it more likely that they both know something? I don't know. Another poster said, I always thought it was the boyfriend and Jay. Jay admitted that he was the last to see her. If the other guys had anything at all to do with it, why would he out himself? The boyfriend has acted shady as he could from all reports here in Indiana. Another post here, Lauren is the missing person, but she was not the center of attention for all these guys as it's often portrayed. Jay had out-of-town guests and female friends for whom he threw the party that night and was busy. They urged her to crash there for the night, but she insisted on leaving, so they made several calls to find her a ride. I would be surprised if he did not call Jesse. He might have intercepted her at the crossing. Wow, okay, this puts a different spin on things, because if there were other female friends there, and they were staying there, and is that why she didn't want to stay there? Because there were too many other people there, but that makes it less likely that they would assault her with all these other female friends there. I don't know. But more interesting details here. Jay and Jesse know each other because they were part of the same fraternity that got shut down for hazing. It also seems like Lauren lied to him, saying she was going to sleep early and instead went on her adventure. I think she only recently met Corey. Huh. Another poster here. Personally, I don't think Corey was involved. According to all three, Corey was wasted and stayed at his place while Lauren went to Rosenbaum's. I don't see the other two saying that if it wasn't true. I think she died accidentally, most likely from a head injury we know she sustained that night, and Rosenbaum and Beth disposed of her body. Very possible, too. Yeah, it's not like all these guys would necessarily have to be on it, but it's curious. Would they blow the whistle on each other, or do they just honestly not know? Because if it was Rosenbaum and Beth and the others don't know that, I mean, would they suspect? Would they have an inkling? I don't know. So they were trying to get her a ride, but they weren't able to. Was someone, and then apparently nobody was able to, if we believe the story that she was sighted a block down at the intersection. I don't know. Doesn't make sense. Actually, apparently, there is more discussion here on why they didn't just leave her at her own apartment. If she lost her keys or didn't have her keys with her and cell phone, because she left her cell phone as well in the bar, and couldn't get into the apartment, what would they do? If her neighbor wasn't home or she didn't know them, I guess they would take her to their place for her to stay there. Would that be, I mean, that'd be better than leaving her in a hallway. So perhaps, I don't know. Perhaps their actions are not as suspicious as it appears, but I don't know. A few more posts here. The more I think about this case, the more I believe it was an abduction of opportunity. Yes, those three friends are kind of shady, but I don't think that one of them killing her, accidental or otherwise, and making the body magically disappear fits. I think she chose to walk home in an inebriated state. Someone pulled up to her, offered a ride, she got in and disappeared. No way to prove that, but that is the gut feeling I get, which doesn't hold much weight, I'll admit. Response here, it's unfortunate we only have Rosenbaum's word that she left. He was hosting a party that night, so I find it hard to believe. No one was outside for a cigarette, leaving, hanging on the balcony. Has anyone else come forward to corroborate this claim? Others say that she might have just had a significant head injury from some of those falls, and then that could have led to her demise, but again, where's the body? Now, supposedly there was also the white truck that was circling the area. Police wrote that off as a construction crew picking up one of their own. Would it be possible for them to give her a ride? I don't know, but they ruled it out. A few more posts with some insight here. Some people believe it was a crime of opportunity. I went to school with a lot of girls from Lauren's hometown. I've followed this story for a long time and truly feel bad for the family. This is Futuristic Sloth posting this. I do think it's very likely that Lauren walked out drunk and was picked up by a townie, probably offering a ride home or even offering more drugs. When you're that young, you feel invincible and just want to be crazy and don't give an expletive about the consequences. She probably went along with the local and either did more drugs and OD'd, or the local kidnapped and killed her. They know the area and probably disposed of her body. I went to a huge party school too and know a lot of people from IU. Girls walked home all the time, completely out of their minds, trashed, and that was just a typical college party life. Her friends were just crappy, immature college kids, too selfish and expletive up themselves to care about helping her getting home. To them, this was just another night. I don't know Laura personally, but if she were a big partier, then this wouldn't worry her friends. And yes, I acknowledge some of you are responsible human beings and never did that stupid expletive in your 20s, but I know so many girls where I went to school behaved the same way she did that night. These kids are from affluent families who have never experienced strife. Of course, mommy and daddy want you to lawyer up immediately. Another response here, yeah, I was the town drunk every weekend into my early 30s and would walk home trashed in a major city on a very regular basis. I also caught a ride with strangers twice. It's not that uncommon. I know a lot of pearl clutchers would never do this, but lots of us have. Common sense goes out the window when you're 6+ drinks into your night. Another post by Filler Tracks. I was an IU student at the time, and my roommate and best friend were the managing editor of the IDS. He said the cops that think she had a cardiac event, she was on daily meds for a condition, as I recall, and that with all the coke she did that night with the boys, she died. Supposedly they called their dealer, who they thought sold them tainted coke, and then they all chopped her up together. But that's what I was told years ago and asking in our cups these days. She died whether by drugs or accident, and they tried to cover it up. She left Smallwood and disappeared from the villas. She died at the villas. Huh. So this is coming from a managing editor? Huh. Some kind of Indiana paper or school paper. The managing editor said that the cops think she had a cardiac event. The boys thought they were sold tainted coke, so they called the dealer and the dealer assisted. Did they ever identify the dealer? They just couldn't prove that? Huh, I don't know. Also, apparently Rosenbaum was one of the only two persons of interest who gave DNA a statement, took a polygraph, and sat down with the Spieers. Huh. Apparently his own lawyer set up the polygraph, though. Other people stated supposedly her boyfriend left town after that? Huh. Another poster, for what it's worth, I've seen on other subs on this case stating that 2 or 3 of the boys she was hanging out with that night were well-known drug dealers on campus. These statements were made by people who were IU students at the time and seemed to have knowledge of this. This is pure speculation, but if she died at Jay's apartment, it's feasible they called one of their higher-up drug suppliers for help to dispose of her. And again, that would tie up the problem with these drunk, dumb kids disposing of a body if they did have a drug connection who has experience with this. And would that be noticeable in all of the commotion in this, like, everybody's drinking and doing cocaine? Would they notice people, 1 or 2 extra guys coming and going? I don't know. Especially if these guys are not these persons of interest, some other 1 or 2 individuals show up, walk in or out with maybe a couple bags, nobody's looking for them, there's no security footage at that particular building, and if they drive a car somewhere else, like they put her in a trunk, drive somewhere else, none of the security cameras in the entire area are looking for a car that does not belong to any of these boys, and an individual who is not any of these boys. So that actually, I don't know if that's what the cops really think would happen. I mean, maybe that is what happened. I don't know. So also reported here, supposedly Rosenbaum had a friend that was staying over that night and was leaving in the morning, who was from Michigan, and he'd drive back to Michigan. So would people be suspicious of him? Because would he have taken the body to Michigan? Huh, I don't know. So getting back to Israel Keys, I mean, I don't know. To judge something based on his reaction, he could have just, what's more likely? There's some kind of drug connection here, or Israel Keys was screwing around with the FBI or whoever was interviewing with him. The last thing I'm going to go over in relation to Keys is a really spooky post posted by Meepits-esque on Creepy Encounters subreddit just 10 months ago. The time I was almost abducted by a serial killer. In February 2012, I went to visit my grandfather's grave for his birthday. His death was a really hard thing for me to deal with, as he had died in March of 2011 and was still very fresh to me. I was kneeling in front of his grave with my head down, mourning and crying, when my body went into full danger is close by mode. I looked up to see a man running full sprint from the woods surrounding the cemetery, and forced myself to get to my truck as quickly as possible without the man getting close to me. By the time I made it to my truck, he had gotten about 50 feet from me. I jumped in, locked the door, much to his apparent displeasure. He threw his hands up in a huff, like his favorite team had just lost a football game. I started the truck and started to drive out as fast as I could, but not before driving right past him. I didn't break eye contact for a second, and neither did he. So I got a really good look at his face. Cut to a few years later, I'm at work bored and decided to download an app that had a ton of paranormal, cryptid, serial killer, and UFO articles. As I was browsing through the serial killers, I came across one that made my heart drop into my ass. Israel Keys, well known for murdering an underage girl in Alaska, dismembering her body, and dropping the pieces in a frozen lake. He would bury kill kits in places long before he ever committed the crimes. After the incident in Alaska, he had traveled to Texas for a wedding in a city not too far from where I live, and had disappeared for a bit, and no one in his family knew where he was. He was arrested in the city and brought to the prison one city over from me before he was extradited back to Alaska to stand trial. About a year ago, I found a book about him that provided a lot of the details I had given here. He had been killing for years. No one knows what the actual death toll is. He eventually killed himself in prison. At the end of the book, he describes some of his favorite places to abduct people: public parks and cemeteries. I often wonder if there's a kit buried in those woods. You were fast, Israel, but I was faster, and I'm glad we didn't officially meet. For clarification, I wasn't super far away from my truck, maybe 30 feet, so I didn't have to go far, but I damn near levitated to get there. Wow. So, of course, Israel Keys admitted to stalking cemeteries and all these areas, but how terrifying is it? If you're mourning a loved one in a cemetery, all of a sudden, your intuition spikes up. You look up out of the corner of your eye. You see a guy running full sprint at you from the edge of the woods. A guy no less, a serial killer like Psycho Israel Keys. Now, does it make it weirder? It doesn't see exactly how far away he was when he noticed him, so he got kind of close. So he had 30 feet to cover, and Israel Keys was 50 feet from him by the time he got to his truck. So it looks like he must have been at least 50 feet away when he started running. I mean, towards him. I mean, it's just creepy. Huh. I mean, in this day and age, like, a lot of these anti-gun people are like, you don't want this to be the Wild West. Or do you? I mean, if everybody's armed, and if everybody knows everybody else is armed, I know the anti-gun people are going to get really triggered here, but how many lives could be saved by simply putting a potential serial killer down early on? Especially if women were armed. All of these victims of his, it's just, if they were clearly armed, I mean, wouldn't that dissuade some of these cowardly serial killers? Because even if they have a gun, they don't want a chance getting killed, because they're very, very cowardly, most of these serial killers. They don't want anything even close to resembling a fair fight. So, and they get off on the fear of their victims. So when potential victims are not actually potential victims, they're empowered individuals who are armed to the teeth and ready to shoot down any potential predator. Also, in situations where children are kidnapped or whatever, sometimes there's innocent passersby. They can't do anything. Not that you would shoot at a child, but you could clearly shoot out the tires of vehicles, or sometimes these predators just simply assume people aren't armed, and a lot of areas, most people are not armed. Would they even try this in some kind of suburb where everybody's just open carrying? Again, to the goofs that just don't understand the stats, they should really look up a town like Kennesaw, Georgia, where they actually passed a law where guns were required. And of course, their violent crime rate dropped like crazy, because why would criminals want to be in a town where everybody's armed, or they know every single house they potentially are going to burglarize is going to have an armed individual ready to shoot them dead if they attempt to commit a crime? So again, I know a lot of people are going to get triggered by that, but it's just reading about all these serial killer victims. It's just so tragic. This should just all be prevented, obviously. So, Israel Keys, one of the most bizarrely evil individuals, one of the most bizarre serial killers, and his story is definitely not for the faint of heart. It was tough to go through some of this, but I hope you guys found it interesting, and we went through it in typical, logical, exhaustive, mind shock fashion with logic and reason at the forefront. If you want to support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal, help us come out with more mind-shocking podcasts. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Like and share this podcast, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.